on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook all at the same time. Instagram and Facebook all at the same time. I need to change that. All right, we're good now. We are good. What's up, Instagram? God, you guys are quick with the questions. Am I vaccinated? Yes, I have been vaccinated when I was a kid. I had to do it in school. I did the flu vaccination and whatever else it was. For questions that you have for me, please come over to Zoom. The link is in our bio. We're currently reviewing my latest workshop. And I'm taking questions, but it's happening all on Zoom. So if you want to participate, come over to Zoom. I appreciate you guys joining this stream. If you want to come and hang out over on Zoom, then I will take any questions you have. I'll address anything you want me to address, but you've got to come over to Zoom. Facebook, that's for you too. Hey, Jeanette, how you doing? Jeanette, can you please copy the caption for this post and post it as a comment so that I can pin it? Hi, Miles. The link is on our bio. If you just go to our profile, click on the link in the bio. All right, we good. So again, follow the link. The link is in our bio. Thank you, Jeanette. Appreciate that. Oh, no. There's a caption for this post. If someone could just copy the caption for this live stream and post it as a comment, I'd really appreciate that. This is for Facebook. If you could just copy that caption, post it as a comment, and then I can pin it. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Got 6 questions already. Let's begin.
Workshop is what I'm going to be teaching you in this workshop is I'm going to, much like a student of this subject, I'm going to bring together like a tapestry everything that I believe has already been laid out before us by those who have done this for longer than us, like Gary Yourofsky, and from the work that I've done myself, and from colleagues like Joey Carbstrong, who we have in the building here today with us. So I'm going to tell you what I think are patterns, common patterns that we can all apply within our outreach, and I'm actually going to give you a truly adaptable approach for everybody, okay? And the reason why it's an approach for everybody is because I'm actually not going to give you Paul Bashir's special approach. I'm just going to tell you what I've observed, what I've analyzed within the movement that is tried and true and works no matter who uses these tools, okay? So that's all I'm doing. I'm just telling you what I've observed that's worked and what I've practiced myself and I know works. I'm going to start at the top though. I'm going to start with the definition of veganism, because in our movement currently, everybody seems to have their own definition. Have you noticed? Right? Does this bother you guys? Do you wish we were all on the same page about this? Yeah? Okay, well, I'm going to attempt to do that right now. So the actual definition, if you go back, all the way back, only pertains to animals. It's a way of living that excludes all forms of animal exploitation. In other words, you live a life anti-animal abuse, just like you would be anti-racism, anti-child abuse, anti-any other injustice that subjects people to oppression or others to oppression. Does that make sense? It's very basic, isn't it? It's very simple. Somehow our movement has conflated this with other things and we've made it more confusing. We've conflated it with health. We've conflated it with environmentalism. And it seems to get further and further away from animal rights, when in actuality, it is only about animal rights. And the only reason why we talk about the health and environment aspects is because animal abuse is the biggest injustice in the world, to the point where it does impact our health and the environment. That's how large the injustice is. So we should really be focusing on the core problem here that's creating the mess that we're in, the problem that's leading to our environmental crisis, the problem that's leading to our health crisis, not talking about the health and environment to get people interested. I'm also going to talk about why that's a myth. Vegan activism, I'm also going to define for you in a very simple way as put by Gary Yourofsky. You simply speak for animals in the same way that you would want to be spoken for if you were in their position. And whenever in doubt, you only have to remember this if you forget why you're doing this. If you lose your way in the heat of the moment, perhaps, just remember that you're speaking for animals in the same way that you would want to be spoken for if you were in their position. Does that make sense? Yeah. Pretty simple stuff. This will help you not to get sidetracked, because there's a lot of bullshit in our movement right now that will get you feeling different ways and thinking different things. You will get distracted, I'm telling you. So just remember, that's all you need to do as an activist, is speak with that in mind. The other thing I'm going to tell you is to stop being the new and start being the tried and true. Stop thinking that you have a special approach that works better than other people, because that's also ruining our movement. This ego. Lots of people tell me to do what Earthing Ed does, right? I understand where they're coming from. They think that they know better, right? They think that they know something that works better. But how many people here feel confident to do what Earthing Ed does? Raise your hand. Not one person. Everybody I've asked this question likes to view what he does, learn from what he does, but could never see themselves doing anything remotely close to what he does. Because he speaks too patiently, he's so well educated, he's got that British accent that you can't mimic, right? It makes him sound so much more intelligent. It makes it seem like you have to do this for years before you can get to that level. So we need to stop trying to achieve a special approach that ticks all the boxes. What we need to do is just stick to what is tried and true. So I'll get into that a bit more. Tried and true just means nuts and bolts, things that always work in every circumstance, no matter what your approach is. Sure, there are some people out there that think that they can do what Earthing Ed does, and they resonate and they feel confident to do that. But most people don't. In fact, I've never heard anyone actually say that to me. But certain things do apply to everybody, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. A lot of people say that my approach, Joey's approach, is too aggressive, too direct, and too extreme. Well, they don't say too direct, actually. That's just the truth of it, is just direct. But they say too extreme, too aggressive, making the vegan movement look bad. Now, I just want you guys to know that everybody has the right to their opinion, but they don't have their right to facts, right? You can't tell Joey that he's not an effective activist. You can't tell him that he doesn't actually convince people to go vegan and to take animal rights seriously. If you try to claim that, you're a liar. You're lying to yourself, and you're lying to everybody in this movement. So then what's really happening here? Why are people saying this then? If we're really effective in real life, why are people trying to tell us that we're not? Like, that seems counterproductive, really, doesn't it? So the reality here is that people are projecting their own insecurities onto activists like me and Joey, because they could never see themselves putting that much truth in that conversation they're having with someone and holding someone to account at that level. They see that as confrontational and perhaps fighting words. They think it's fighting words, like someone's going to fight you if you say this to them. What I'm going to show you today, again, this applies to everybody, and I'm going to show you that the things that we actually say to people don't cause the kind of reaction that you would fear. They actually cause people to respect you a lot more, and more importantly, to respect the message, which is why we're out there. We want people to take this message seriously, don't we? Right, so another thing I'm going to explain here is the difference between aggressive and violent, because these two words have been conflated and people think that being aggressive means that you're violent, but it's not true. In fact, if you look at the definition of the word aggressive, it just means that you're driving forward and getting something done. People use that in sports all the time. Oh yeah, good quarter, he was really aggressive. Does he mean that he was violent and beating people up in that quarter? Obviously not. He just played with a lot of aggression and he got it done, right? So aggression is not a bad thing. In fact, if you look at what's happening to the animals and you don't feel angry, I would say see a psychologist. There's something wrong with you. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. So anger is completely normal in this situation. Nobody should ever make you feel ashamed. Put your anger into activism. And the only thing that has given me fulfillment in my activism is effective activism. So when you put your anger into activism and you find success in your activism, you will feel fulfilled. Like I said before, this is really simple, but sometimes we get lost in minutia, we get lost in the source, and we forget how simple this stuff is. When it comes to morality, there's this idea out there that it's subjective. I don't buy into that at all, and I think that that's problematic to our movement to think that that's the case, because morality is very black and white. In the instance of child abuse, you would never have a day where you go over to this side and decide that child abuse is okay, right? It's never going to waver. It's always going to be evil. There's never going to be a day where you think murder is okay, rape is okay, or any of the things that I could list, right? Does everyone agree with that, disagree with that? Yes. Right, so morality is black and white, right? Like my t-shirt, right? So when people try to stump us and go, yeah, but you know, there's a gray area to this that you're not considering, you're not open-minded, that is a distraction and a manipulation tactic, and you should know better. Because when it comes to animal abuse, there is no gray area. How can you justify this? You can't. It's important to have that in mind when you're dealing with people. Okay, so also, there is no excuse under the sun that could ever be thrown at you that will truly stump you if you keep in mind what I just told you and everything I'm going to tell you. So you should never feel stumped by anything that's thrown at you, because the excuses, no matter what they are ridiculous. Ridiculous. All of them. Did you know the circle of life originates from the Lion King? Raise your hand if you knew that. Nobody.
She told me.
Right.
The other day.
Did you know that? You had a feeling. Why doesn't anybody talk about this? Why are we letting non-vegans say this shit and not holding them to account for this? Your reason for abusing animals comes from the Lion King? Morgan Freeman, he said the circle of life. Now every non-vegan says it to justify why they kill animals. I mean, this just goes to show how comical this is, right? So just remember, no matter what excuse you get, there is nothing that can stump this.
I have to note, it wasn't Morgan Freeman. I thought everyone sounds like Morgan Freeman apparently. It's the guy who played Darth Vader. And I later learned this. I cut this out of the YouTube video, but I made a mistake.
I'm going to talk to you about why focusing on being liked as a vegan is a massive flaw. In no other circumstance do we go out into the world and we think being liked is more important than the task at hand or the mission at hand, right? We also know that people don't really like people who care too much about being liked. We actually like people who don't care about what other people think of them, right? Isn't that how the world works? Why is it that every vegan currently, though, focuses on being liked as a priority? Doesn't really resonate with the way the world works, does it? So we think if we say the right thing, do the right thing, and the person that we're talking to likes us, they'll go vegan. What happens when they don't like you anymore? All right? They go back to abusing animals? It doesn't work. Even if they did like you and that was the reason why they went vegan, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. People respect the truth. And have you ever heard the expression real, recognize real? It's like a urban saying in hip hop, real, recognize real. That's a deep expression. When you say something to someone that's truthful, they find it familiar. That's why they don't react in a negative way that you would expect, some kind of aggressive manner. It might be negative in the sense that it won't be the answer you're looking for, perhaps, because they're still conceding through excuses, etc. But you're never going to get this response where people say, oh, what? You're holding me accountable. I'm going to, fight with you or whatever. Hudson in the back over there. Can you please tell them, you're 18 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you've been trying this method. Look how small this guy is, right? He's approaching people twice his size and telling him, you're a hypocrite, you're an animal abuser. Has anybody ever been aggressive to
Not
you?
one person. I've gotten more respect doing this approach than I ever have because people don't see me as some politician trying to sell them something. I'm just a normal dude who's just trying to fight animal abuse, and people respect it so much.
Again, you guys need to try this out for yourself before you know this to be true. That's the only way you'll know this to be true. And the other thing is, in this movement, we think that veganism is about love and compassion. And we don't talk about the fact that it's merely a justice issue. Being a non-racist isn't about love necessarily. It's just wrong to be a racist. It's an injustice. And we don't love every child in the world necessarily in order for us to be against child abuse, right? We just know that it's wrong no matter whose child it is and which child it is, right? So the same thing applies here. But I also want to explain how this approach that I'm talking to you about right now is actually the real form of love and compassion that we can give to people. If you really want to break it down and be honest about what love and compassion is, you don't lie to your friends. When you pander and you focus on being liked as a vegan as a priority and you say things that compromise on the message, well, in that scenario, you lost, right? Because you're focusing on getting love and compassion rather than giving it. Does that make sense? You want love and compassion from this animal abuser you're talking to because you want them to like you so much. But you're not extending love and compassion for the victims that are involved here, and also you're not extending love and compassion to the abuser. That's what we're out there doing, isn't it? Educating people, giving them an opportunity to wake up to this. We're not forcing people to go vegan on the streets. We're talking to them, and through discussion we hope that they'll wake up and go vegan, right? So education is the most compassionate thing that you can offer anybody when they're the actual victimizer. They're the abuser. What we usually do with criminals who are abusers and victimizers is we put them in prison. We're out on the streets talking to them, trying to help them to waken up to the crimes they're committing. Does that make sense? So this is the best form of compassion that there is. Have you ever heard the expression, you never lie to your friends? Right, now extend that to the public. To me, that's compassion. If you don't lie to your friends and then you extend that to the public, right, and you just simply focus on telling people the truth, that's compassion. That's why people don't respond in the way that you would expect. That's why people respond with respect in response, right? Now, I'm going to get into something that I
need to pause there because so many of you really need to rewatch that part. I'm tempted to actually replay that part about focusing on being liked as a vegan, because so many of you who are vegan care about this. So fucking many. Every time I log onto social media, and I see someone post even something that's slightly savage, and by savage, I just mean truthful, honest, real. Our society has become so fake that the truth is seen as violent, is seen as rude. Every time I log on, I see some fucking vegan complaining in the comment section about how this makes veganism look bad and makes other vegans look bad. Here's some truth for you. If this applies, you make the vegan movement look bad because you focus on being liked as a priority. You focus on getting love and compassion from animal abusers, which is not how you're supposed to be approaching an injustice. You care more about how vegans look than how the state of this injustice looks. When you tell people, oh, don't say things like you're an animal abuser and you're a human supremacist. Yeah, and I think this is the problem, is that we focus so much on being liked that we have forgotten our reasons for even being vegan, why we speak up for the animals. I mean, it's so obvious that we're supposed to be speaking up for them. That's why we're vegan. But then we make it about being liked as a vegan. And then we think if we get people to like us, they'll go vegan. And this is why I don't focus on the environment and health anymore. Why we don't do this anymore. It's because when you promote veganism as something that is about the environment or human health, then what you do is, even if they do take the health and environment message seriously, then what you do is you set up that person to be the perfect candidate for the kind of vegan who talks shit about every other vegan because they're one of those vegans. And they start saying things like, oh, don't worry, I have my choice and you have yours. So I respect your choice to not be vegan. And then they say things like, oh, that activist, he's shit because, oh, like he's too hardcore. And that's not how you should promote veganism at all. And they're also the perfect candidate for someone who comes out at some point and makes one of those videos that says, I'm no longer vegan and here's why. And they talk shit about veganism. So this is the problem. Like, if we don't promote animal rights as animal rights, which is what veganism is supposed to be, then we set people up to be the worst kind of vegans. Take a look around in our movement. Most people are finding it to be a massive problem that we simply focus on animal rights. Now, I say most people, maybe I'm being too generous, but a lot of people. So many people have left AV because we have decided to remove the environment and health message from our logo and from our messaging. It's so problematic for people that we just want to focus on the animals. And yet, look at where we are right now. I mean, it's just insane. It's just insane. People think that we're making the vegan movement look bad by focusing on animal rights. So again, this might need to be replayed if this is something that applies to you or someone you know. If you focus on being liked as a priority, then please, 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 please understand this isn't about you. This is about the animals. That's why we got into this. We're animal rights activists. If you want to be liked by people, I wouldn't recommend it in any field, actually. I was going to say do it in another field of work, but I don't think you should be focusing on being liked as a priority in any case. But especially when you're an activist who's supposed to be fighting for others, in this case, the animals, then you absolutely have no reason to focus on being liked as a priority. You have even less of a reason. And if you really think that what I'm saying is jarring, if you're still caught up on what I'm saying right now, as being the wrong message. Just imagine a civil rights activist sitting down with a white person back in 200 years ago, right? And this wouldn't even happen because they wouldn't even sit together, really, would they? But just imagine that this black person was trying to wake up a white person to the rights of black people. And his or her focus was to have the white person like them. I mean, if that was the number one priority, was to be liked, how do you think that would fare? Do you think that the white person would actually take black rights seriously? Yeah, and I think that, I understand that we need to reach an understanding, right? So don't take what I'm saying out of context. But at the end of the day, we are going to reach a level of understanding with people if we're putting social comfort before making people uncomfortable about animal abuse. So we need to get our priorities straight. So, yeah, I just wanted to, I just saw a whole bunch of stuff over the last couple of days online from people who are focusing so much on being liked, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the animals that we care so much about that. And this is the true reason, in my view, why people don't take veganism seriously, why they don't take vegans seriously, and why they don't take animal rights seriously. So let's continue.
I did start talking about, we promote a sales approach, a value-based sales approach. When I first started out, I noticed a lot of similarities between what people say in the sales world and the training that you get in sales to some of the things we do on outreach to convince people to take animal rights seriously. So I tried to gel the two together, but I think I've created some confusion in doing that because it's created this idea that schmoozing people into veganism and tricking them with these, like a special approach and saying certain things is going to trick people into being vegan. And this is something I need to squash, and that's one thing I'm hoping to squash this year well and truly, because what I mean by sales is convincing somebody of something that they're not already convinced on. That's all I mean by sales. And I'm also trying to bring over things that are applicable from the sales world into this, so to see what tools can carry over. One of them is a method called feel, felt, found. Okay? I'll also talk about the traditional sales approach, but just one tool I'm going to give you right now is feel, felt, found. When someone says, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but meat tastes too good, so I don't think I could give up meat. Now, only use this tool in circumstances where it's authentic, where you can really relate to what the person is saying in terms of what you went through when you first went vegan. Don't just use this willy-nilly. Use this sparingly, and only use this in those circumstances where you can actually relate. So if they say, oh, I just don't think I could give up meat. Well, in that case, I understand how the person feels, so I would say I understand how you feel. I felt similarly when I was in your position when I first started looking into this, but what I found is you could never justify slicing an animal's throat, stabbing them to death for a sandwich that I don't even need to eat no matter how much I like the taste. And you bring it back, so you take it away from this trivial nonsense to the reality of what we're talking about. And you anchor it in that way. Again, don't use this too often. It's just something you should use sparingly. But again, it's just a tool that comes from the sales world that is applicable here. Make sense?
I can't imagine myself just not eating meat anyway.
Well, I understand how you feel because I felt similarly when I first started looking into this information. But what I found is that your palate pleasure that you derive from a food item cannot justify the torment and the suffering that we actually cause to those beings.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of horrific how many animals we kill and how we kill them.
Yeah. All right, now the three-step process, I'm going to teach you, again, this is the only two things I'm telling you from the sales world, the feel, felt, found method and the three-step approach. The reason why I'm telling you about this three-step approach is because There's a traditional sales approach for every sale that occurs, and I'm just gonna, again, nuts and bolts, I'm gonna take you through that traditional process of how it works. The first step is to get somebody emotionally convicted in what you're talking about. The best way to do that, connect them to the sense of injustice and hold them accountable to that injustice. That's the way you get them emotionally convicted in what's going on. The second step is to make it about that individual, because people love to say, well, take it up with the government, or these industries should be doing better. We should be protesting these industries. They try to palm it off to someone else and instead of taking responsibility. This is a typical human thing, and that's why it's your job to make sure that they understand that they are in the hot seat. They're the ones who are being held to account right now. So don't let them think that this is up to the rest of the world or just food for thought for them to consider. The third step is to tie in the benefits. Now, I've had some improvements here, some developments, and the evolution of my workshops has led me to scrap the initial benefits I used to talk about, which was, the first benefit was you no longer have to have this on your conscience, but I realize that's pandering. Because when you say that, you're assuming that the person has this on their conscience. You're making them a good person when they haven't even taken action yet to be a good person. That's pandering. I used to say you also will have improved health if you do this properly and you eat a whole foods diet. Mistake, because I'm conflating animal rights with health. And I used to say it's better for the environment, right? If you want a smaller footprint, this is going to be better for the environment. So yeah. All these benefits, you know, it's a tick for all of these things. Again, a mistake, because I'm conflating animal rights with environmentalism. Now, all we say is that the number one benefit for you being vegan is that you no longer have to be an animal abuser. You no longer have to be a hypocrite, because you say that you're against animal abuse. When you're vegan, you live in alignment with those morals that you say you have. That's it. That's the number one benefit. Isn't that the number one benefit that you each got out of this? Was there any other real benefit for taking animal rights seriously? That's the number one reason why you continue to do this, isn't it? Because you don't want to be an animal abusing hypocrite. So that's what we should tell people. Let's not lie to them and say that we all love to be so healthy and environmentally friendly. That's not why we're fucking animal rights activists.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, we're activists because we don't want to enable animal abuse further. I don't want to be an animal abuse enabler. That's why I'm not apologetic, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm gonna, yeah.
About this, and people are less likely to feel compelled to speak up.
What Joey just said was super powerful. You know, we don't want to be an animal abuse enabler. That's why we're unapologetic. That's why we're aggressive. Right? We say what needs to be said for that reason. We don't want to enable animal abuse. I'm willing to extend this as far as possible with anybody, you know?
About this, when you make this about the environment and the health as well. Also, we don't have much time with these people. We're on the streets talking to them for 5 minutes if we're lucky, right? So why would we bring anything else into the conversation other than animal rights? There's only one truth bomb we need them to wake up to, and that's animal rights. If you start bringing up health and environment in that little short time that you have with them, they're now thinking about multiple things, aren't they? They're not thinking about animal rights as seriously and as focused as they should be. Plus, the vegan movement is already filled with environmental messages and health messages. We don't need to be another entity doing this. People already know about the health aspects of this by now. People already know about the environmental aspects by now. So this is also about acting in accordance to the temperament of the times, right? It's outdated for us to be talking about that now. Let's get with the times and just focus on animal rights, which is what this movement was supposed to be about from the beginning anyway, but we lost our way. So it's our responsibility to bring it back here and anchor it back to what it's supposed to be about. Guilt is effective. It's the only thing that gets people to go vegan. People say you shouldn't be shaming people. Don't guilt trip them. How else are we going to get them to go vegan? How else are you going to get people to take animal abuse seriously if they don't feel guilty for what they're doing? And how are you going to get them to feel guilty if you don't bring up things that make people feel guilty? Like, you are an animal abuser. If you just suggest that they might be an animal abuser, like as a food for thought philosophical discussion that you have at a bar usually, they're not going to take it seriously at all. Right? It's just food for thought. Yeah, that guy made some good points. They walk off. Right? That's it. That's all it ends up resulting in. We don't want that as activists, do we? We want them to really take this issue seriously. And again, it's not malicious. We're not trying to make people feel guilty because we get off on it. We're trying to make people feel guilty because we care about this issue. People also pick up on that. We've got our heart in the right place. Yeah? Unless you're being egotistical and you just love being right and you like owning people in the moment, then the person might react differently to how I'm suggesting. But as long as your heart's in the right place and you're just trying to wake people up to something that's obvious and is obviously wrong, then people won't react negatively. Here's the thing, there's a myth being perpetuated in this movement that people don't care about animals, so that's why we talk about the environment and the health. Right? Have you fallen into this thinking? Anybody? I have. Yeah. This is, again, a huge myth that's been perpetuated in our movement. If someone doesn't care about animals seemingly, it's usually because you're not effectively advocating for the animals. That's it. It's because you're not speaking boldly enough about the animals and you're not holding them to account enough for what they're doing to the animals. If you do all of that and they don't have anything inside them that cares about animal abuse and it being done in their name, then talking about the environment and the health is never going to get them to take animal abuse seriously. I promise you that. In fact, to the contrary, people who you focus on environment and health with who then take that serious and become environmentalist vegans, or I'm vegan for health, whatever the fuck that means, those people are harder to talk to about veganism because they think they're already doing it. Right? And you say, but you wear leather and I just saw you eat some cream in your coffee. Yeah, but I only do it once a week and blah, blah, blah. But what about animal abuse? You said you're vegan, so don't you take animal abuse seriously? Ah, that's a bit extreme. I don't need to hear all that. That's a bit too much. I already do my part. But if they got the message from the beginning that there is no alternative to this, you are either an animal abuser or you're not, then maybe they would have gone in the right direction. Same thing with vegetarians. How many people have spoken to a vegetarian that won't listen? All hands go up. People think vegetarians are closer to our cause. They're closer to what we care about. People tell us this all the time. Vegetarians are on our side though. We just need to give them a bit more information and then they'll go vegan. Yeah, okay. Then you step into our shoes and you realize when you talk to these people, they feel entitled. They feel like they're already doing enough. And how dare you ever tell them that they're not? That's the attitude they give you. So why is this? Because we've been promoting that vegetarianism is enough. It is okay. You are an animal defender if you're vegetarian. Vegetarianism is cancer. It's a cancer to our movement. It is, just like reducitarianism is or flexitarianism is. All of these things are cancers to animal rights, to animals getting the justice that they deserve in this world. So when you talk to a vegetarian, they're exactly our target market. Right? If they say, don't worry, you don't need to talk to me, I'm already vegetarian. A lot of Indians say this, a lot of people in general say this. Okay, you're exactly who we need to talk to. We're not promoting vegetarianism because vegetarians hurt animals. All right.
Again, I just want to bring it back to the point I made earlier. Even if people do take the health and environment or the reducitarian or flexitarian message seriously, you are setting someone up to be the worst kind of vegan. You are literally creating the framework for that individual to go off and be the worst kind of vegan that there is, or animal rights person that there is. You have to understand that, because these are the kinds of vegans or people who claim to be on the side of animal rights, who then talk shit about vegans who promote activism differently to them, who are direct or aggressive is what I was going to say with the quotation marks, right? They are also the perfect candidates for vegans who come out and then say they're no longer vegan and make a stupid YouTube video about it and claim that the diet didn't work and anything else that they can say to throw veganism under the bus. They talk shit about real deal activists who are actually creating change in the world. And they make a mockery of animal rights in the simple fact of how they live their lives, because they're willing to sit with non-vegans and say, I respect your personal choice. You want to eat animals that have been tortured to death in your name? That's your personal choice. And I have my personal choice, and I just want respect between us. I want respect from the abuser. And that's how they promote animal rights activism. Animal rights and animal rights activism is made a mockery in other people's eyes because of people like that. So this is what you're creating when you talk to people about veganism, and it's about anything other than animal rights.
I'm going to explain human psychology, just a little ponder I wrote down one day, okay? Little thought I thought was important to realize. But this is perhaps why people feel so defensive when it comes to this. Number one, if someone's guilty, they're going to be defensive usually, right? Have you ever noticed criminals being pulled into an interrogation room and the police are asking them the tough questions? Yeah, that's how people act when we're outreaching people, because they're guilty. And they know they're guilty. It's obvious that they have committed crimes. They've probably just ate a burger before they talk to you, right? So I'm going to talk to you about why it seems like a complete nightmare to talk to non-vegans sometimes, okay? When it comes to eating, it is the most intimate connection that we have with the outside world. Think about that. This is why we see people getting a lot more cognitively dissonant and defensive over the food aspect of veganism, as opposed to the clothing or testing aspects. More people are willing to accept that wearing fur is evil, but when it comes to changing their habits, their eating habits rather, their defensiveness is truly astounding. I know you can all relate. This is what I experienced when I was promoting a plant-based diet only for almost 2 years before I became an animal rights activist. And I need to say that because I don't want anybody ever talking to me about why health is a better way to advocate, because I did it for 2 years straight. Guess how many people to this day are 100% plant-based because of my actions? Anybody? Guess. Yeah, exactly 0. Not even one that I can credit. For 2 years, and I was active as fuck. I was online. I ran a blog, which is still up on Tumblr. It's called The Health Cosmos, if you want to go check it out. Recipes. I had recipes for days. I was consulting with people. I ran a Twitter account with 700 plus followers. I was really doing my thing for 2 years. Not a single person. No matter how much science I talked about, no matter how much disease I talked about, people don't care about their health. I don't know why we think people care about their health. How many people here eat a 100% whole foods diet? Raise your hand. Not a single person. How many people eat lots of vegan junk food? Raise your hand. Half the room. Okay, why do we expect non-vegans are going to give a shit about their health then? Right? This is not a health message. People feel just the same after they go vegan. They don't feel that much better health-wise. We just created this myth or this idea because we want people to take animal rights seriously. Let's be honest. That's the only reason why we started talking about this shit.
Disclaimer, you guys already know I'm eating a whole foods meal right now. You already know I take whole foods seriously. I take health seriously. I like taking care of myself. And a whole foods plant-based diet is the healthiest diet on the planet. It is going to reverse some of the issues you have in your life. It reversed my IBS. I had other issues as well, and it healed it. Okay? So I'm saying this as someone who truly understands this. Most people, however, who go vegan, and I really mean vegan, obviously, they report just feeling similar. They report feeling similar. Let's be honest. Okay, people who go whole foods plant-based, they feel better, but these people don't usually stick to veganism because they didn't go vegan. They were just trying to take care of themselves. So they do end up incorporating animal products back into their diets, torture products. So what I'm trying to say here is I do believe in the power of plant-based diet for health. I will advocate plant-based diets for health to people in some circumstances, but I'll be damned if I'm going to have that conversation before I have the conversation about animal rights, because I'm an animal rights activist. Okay, that's what I am. That's what I want to talk to people about, because what's more important here is that animals are being subjected to the worst injustice on the planet. It's the greatest form of violence on the planet.
So when you couple the fact that we are addressing the largest and longest standing injustice on the planet and the most pressing issue of our time, plus the fact that you're addressing the most intimate connection that people have with the outside world, well, you got to expect a nightmare, right? So hopefully that helps to put it into perspective for you, why people respond the way they do. This isn't an animal conversation that you're having with people. It's not about animals necessarily and how people feel about animals, and do you have a dog in your home or a cat in your home? Surely you have some compassion for animals. Forget about that conversation completely. This is an accountability conversation. People have blood on their hands, regardless if it's an animal or a human. It's a living, breathing, sentient being who suffers in the same way that we suffer, that the person you're talking to suffers. So this is an accountability conversation. You don't have to love animals to be a vegan, do you? Right? We say this all too often though. If you love animals, you don't eat them. You don't eat your friends. Animals are my friends, you would never eat your friends. All these messages are polluting the idea of what this is about. You don't have to love black people to not enslave them, do you? Do you? You just have to understand basic fairness and justice among all of us. That's all you have to do. Same thing applies here. Same exact thing applies here. So accountability is just holding people up to the crimes that they're committing. That's all you're doing as an activist. And that's the other thing I want to say, is that I've been saying, forget about this special approach idea. I also just want to say that you need to understand what your role is as an activist, what your function is, and that is, and I'm going to make it easier for you to understand, is to simply be a medium of truth. Truth won't prevail in this world unless people are speaking it into reality and acting upon it. Truth exists in our world, but it doesn't act on its own. It just exists. It only acts when it's brought into action by those who are mediums of truth, and that's us as activists. We speak the truth over and over, repeatedly, like a broken record, like a chorus that fills the environment, and then we act upon the truth by getting people to take action, by getting ourselves to take action, by going out into the streets and talking to people. Does that make sense? That's all. That's all you need to think about as an activist. You're a medium of truth. People say sometimes, I only eat meat once in a while. So I'm going to go back to the reducitarian nonsense, okay? The difference between never and once is the difference between good and bad, right? So if people say, oh, I need a little bit of meat, okay, well, you're only a little bit of an animal abuser. Those animals are only a little bit dead. All those animals you just enslaved and killed once a month or twice a month or whatever, how do you justify that? Right? So if it's only one animal they kill a month, focus on that one animal. How can you justify killing that one animal? No matter how small the issue is in their heads or how big it is.
They're usually lying as well. 99.99999% of the time, they're lying if they say I only eat a little bit of meat. So even when you're focusing on the small amount of animals that they do enslave needlessly and torture to death needlessly, I'm saying focus on that. But what you'll find usually is that people are straight up lying through their teeth because they feel guilty. It's actually a good sign that they're talking like this because they feel guilty. Otherwise they wouldn't be saying this, because they only say this to vegans.
There's blood on their hands if they're not vegan. So just remember that you don't need to let anyone off the hook unless they're vegan. No one gets off the hook unless they're vegan, okay? Only respond to objections, but don't bring them up. I've made this mistake more than anyone, by the way. Again, I'm telling you what I've tried and what is true as a result of my experience. I've done this a lot, but you might start bringing up things about animal rights and different perspectives in the conversation, but they haven't brought anything up, right? So I'll give you an example. Sometimes I'll say something like, I'll answer their question, and then I've got them thinking, and while I've got them thinking, I'll keep going, right? And I'll go, yeah, and veganism is not a perfectionism pill, right? It doesn't mean you cause zero harm to animals. I walked over to talk to you, I may have stepped on a bug by accident, right? I'm not going to stop being vegan now. It's about causing the least amount of suffering that's practically possible in this world. I didn't need to bring that up. He didn't ask. So this is really important. Keep it simple. This is another thing that comes from the sales word, actually. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Because the longer you make it, the more you add to the message, the harder it is for them to consume it. So you have to make sure that you keep it as short and as simple as possible. Only bring up points that are relevant to what is happening in that interaction. You've got to ask questions to find out where they're at, and only speak to where they're at. Make sense? Whenever you're in doubt, this helps me a lot. Whenever in doubt in these arguments, sometimes you get a little bit sidetracked and you start maybe doubting certain aspects of your argumentation. Whenever in doubt, just compare this to any other injustice. And it's really that simple, because people already understand that child abuse is wrong, and nobody would ever label themselves a child abuser unless they're a psychopath. So compare this to child abuse and you'll be fine every time. Animals are really no different to children, actually. They are our children. We're supposed to be taking care of these animals. We're supposed to be their protectors. That's what parents do, right? So this is really not that much different. When I was saying don't bring things up unless it's brought up by the person that you're outreaching, also don't bring up statistics. Minimal amounts of statistics possible, please. Because we're not expert, especially if it's to do with the environment and health. I don't even use those, because we're not environmentalists. We're not experts in environmental work. We're not environmental activists, are we? We're not health activists either. We're not out there as nutritionists trying to give people the science and education on nutrition. The only reason why we're talking about that stuff is because it's supposed to help the animal rights message. What we are experts in, or trying to become experts in, is animal rights activists, right? That's what our focus is. So I want you to remember that minimal statistics is better. Less is more in these circumstances. And the last thing I want to say is two things. Words to use, words not to use. Now, we as vegans know about the word speciesism. Who here does not? Raise your hand if you've never heard the word speciesism. Okay. The word vegan and the word speciesism, the word carnism, these words are either misunderstood or confusing to people. So I would say use these words, but use them, I want to say sparingly, and focus way more on what these things actually mean. And the words that I've actually become more accustomed to using is human supremacism, because that puts into context what this is really all about. And animal abuse is also the other thing I like to talk about mainly here, because at the core of this, when you're telling someone, so what do you think? Are you going to go vegan? It's actually more important to say, more effective to say, so what do you think? Do you think you'll stop abusing animals now? Needlessly? Yeah. Way more powerful, right? Yeah. And isn't that what this is all about anyway? Yeah. So let's be more accurate. And also I could have said, so what do you think? Do you think you'll give up being a human supremacist today? Human supremacism is at the core of this because you think you're so important and so special compared to these other animals. That's really what speciesism is. But I like human supremacism more because it more firmly and accurately describes it. Yeah? Now, I'm going to take you through a interaction, because I've been talking to you about a lot of things here, but now I want to take you through a standard interaction from start to end, just so you can get an idea of what it would be like. Another thing I'm going to say is that I think that you should always keep it anchored, because non-vegans will take you for a ride every time. When someone's feeling guilty, they'll anchor the conversation the way they want it anchored. And they may even be doing this subconsciously. It may not be conscious, it may not be malicious, but because their guilt is flaring up, their defense mechanisms are at play, and they're trying to anchor the conversation somewhere else. Oh, but I heard that parents fed their children a vegan diet and killed them. Right? It's a distraction. All these things are distraction. Oh yeah, I don't know much about that, but that sounds like a stupid parent to me. Right? It's just stupid parents who don't know how to feed their children properly. Back to the conversation though. Right? But how do you justify killing animals needlessly? Just to make an example. Always anchor the conversation back to animal rights, and more importantly, back to the animal abuse that that individual is committing. So always anchor it back into accountability. And you always find that people will either try to slide their way out of the conversation, or they'll be ready to face it. But either way, the truth needs to get told to that individual. Another myth is that outreach interactions are only successful if the person says, yes, I agree with you. Like vocally says that to you. But why do we think that that's how people go vegan? You know how people usually go vegan for real? The ones who go vegan for real? They go, and they walk off. That's probably the best response you're going to get. So
I also just want to point out that, I'm making an example here, but much of the time they could actually leave angry. They could leave talking shit to you under their breath, or in their minds at least, telling themselves, whatever, that vegan outreacher is just pompous. He's just not, like, that person is just, morally, they think they're morally superior, and fuck them. A lot of the times people will leave and you'll think that their energy is negative. You'll think that they are thinking negatively about veganism, or negatively about you and the interaction that they just had. It's either that, or it seems neutral, like they don't really care, they're too busy, or they're too caught up. And this example I'm making is what happens a lot of the time when people just sort of concede and disappear. They concede and walk off. You know what I mean? And that's usually what happens when people end up going vegan.
So you should see those as successful interactions. Successful interactions are when you say the correct thing on behalf of the animals, regardless of what they say in response. If you've held them to account accurately, if you've said all the correct things on behalf of the animals, that is a successful interaction. Why? Because that's the best you can do as an activist. Whether they wake up to it or not and choose to live in alignment with the morals they said they have to the vegan outreacher that they just spoke to is up to them. If we could force people to become vegan, I wouldn't be running these workshops, trust me. I would be out there forcing people to be vegan. Since you can't force people to be vegan, then this is the best that we can do. A successful outreach approach or interaction would be them walking off, but at some point, if they go vegan on their own accord, which it will be on their own accord after you've told them the truth, then you may or may not know about it. You may not know about it, you may not hear about it. We have success stories of people coming back to tell us, but most of these people who go vegan don't end up telling us. So, a standard approach. At the Cube, we wait for people to stop and watch the footage on the screen. This helps to pre-qualify the public, because we don't want to talk to everybody. Not everybody is ready and willing, like I said, to adopt this truth, to go vegan, to stop abusing animals. So we wait for people to stop and watch the footage. This helps us to understand that this person is at least somewhat open to having a discussion with us. Then we approach them. Now, don't approach them too soon as they stop. And also, don't approach them too late. So I can't give you a time period here. I'm not going to say 30 seconds on the second. Okay, use your best judgment, because somebody might stop. They might be obviously in a rush because they have kids running around and they want to go. Their husband's walked off on them or whatever. So you know that they don't have much time there, and it's probably not worth it. And give them 10 seconds, they'll probably walk off. If they're still there after 20 seconds maybe, approach them. But use your best judgment, and also just be patient here. Be patient, because if you rush in too quickly, it can come off looking bad as well. That always kind of reminds me of when you walk into a retail store and they go, "Can I help you with anything?" It's like, "I just walked in. Like, can I at least have a look first before I might have any questions?" So when someone does stop and they're watching the footage, we approach them and then we say, "Hi, would you like to know why we're here?" We used to say, "Have you ever seen this footage before?" Again, we've updated this. Why do we ask, "Would you like to know why we're here?" Because we need that commitment from the individual. We need this to be a two-way conversation.
Good.
Would you like to know why we're here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Would you like to hear what we're doing here?
Oh, sure, yeah. What's going on?
Would you like to know what we're doing?
I think I know.
Yeah? What do you think we're doing? Right.
How they are in the sheds and stuff. Yeah.
They don't say yes to that, and they don't show some kind of affirmative response in wanting to know why we're there, then what makes you think that you're going to be able to have a successful conversation with them anyway? They have to at least be open to that. So if they say, "Yes, I'd like to know why you're here," or they try to guess why you're here, some kind of affirmative answer as to giving you the open floor so you can talk, at that point, then I'll describe what we're showing on the screen. So I'll describe the fact that we're showing footage of what happens in the meat, dairy, and egg industries, and what happens in every other industry that exploits animals, that abuses animals rather. That's the other thing. Exploitation is a word I seldomly use because people translate exploitation to child slavery in sweatshops, and they don't think of it as animals getting stabbed to death and their heads cut off. They don't think of that as exploitation. So I just refer to animal exploitation as animal abuse, because that's what animal exploitation is anyway. So I explain that this footage is covering the meat, dairy, and egg industries and all industries that exploit animals, including the free-range, organic, grass-fed, cage-free, humane-certified industries. This is what you're viewing on the screens.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're showing the behind the scenes of industries that abuse animals. Meat, dairy, eggs.
So what we're showing shows what happens to animals in meat, dairy, and egg industries.
So what we're showing on the screens is standard practice footage of what happens in the meat, dairy, and egg industries, and even the industries that label themselves free-range, grass-fed, organic, humane-certified. We're showing all of that on the screens. You have to gauge from the individual how they feel about what they're seeing and how they feel about animal abuse in general. So I ask, do you think animal abuse is wrong? Or my other favorite question is, do you think stabbing animals to death for a sandwich is wrong? What I'm getting from what you just said is that you think this is wrong?
I do.
Yeah, would you say that this is evil, what we do for a sandwich? Yeah?
Are you guys against the animal abuse?
Against animal abuse, yeah.
Do you find this to be wrong, what we're doing to animals?
Definitely abusive.
So would you say you're against this?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Okay, so this is the first question to get them connecting to why we're there. And then they're going to go into their response. Oh, yeah, the response that I always get, by the way, is yes, of course. I never get any other response. No one ever says, no, I don't think it's wrong. I'm totally all for animal abuse. Everyone has said to me, of course I'm against animal abuse. Yeah, I do think it's wrong that we stab animals to death for a sandwich. But then they get into their excuses. Right? So this is where you have to respond to the objections. Yeah, but don't plants have a life as well? Yeah, but I mean, the circle of life. You know? And then so you respond to the objection, you deal with it, and I'm not going to get into every excuse and how to deal with them, because you should all know by now, I think, in this movement, there's enough information out there to find out what the response is to plants have feelings. God says it's okay. But we do have a Q&A coming up, and if you guys have any questions regarding any arguments that you're stuck on, I'm more than happy to help you with them. But I'm not going to get into that during this now. I'm just going to tell you that you deal with the objection. The excuses are all ridiculous, too easy to deal with. Once you deal with them, again, you have to anchor it back. Okay, so now we've dealt with the fact that plants don't have feelings. How do you justify killing animals when you don't need to? So you always bring it back to the fact that there is injustice afoot. Right, so what we're showing on the screens today is footage of animal agriculture. We're showing what the meat, dairy, and egg industries and other industries do to abuse animals. Do you think stabbing animals to death for a sandwich is wrong? Yes, I do. Now, the response usually to this is, what do you think you can do about it? Because again, you've got them, this is very quick, you've got them on the emotional aspect of connecting to what's happening here. Not fully, but you've got them enough. You've got them enough on that point because you've started that interaction that way. What do you think you can do about it as an individual? What do you think you can do about it?
Not buy a product.
Right.
So if you think that it's evil, what do you think you could do about it?
Not eat meat or use stuff that come from animals too much.
Exactly.
Okay, and what do you think you can do about it?
Stop eating sandwiches, be vegan.
Yeah? Now, usually people say, well, I guess I could stop eating them because it's so fucking obvious. But then the excuses come in. Yeah, but we've always been doing this, haven't we? Our ancestors did it, blah, 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 it's always been around. So again, back to the objection handling, but then you anchor it back immediately after you handle the objection. So how do you justify abusing animals, right? It's a little bit of back and forth in that section of the outreach. Back and forth, deal with the objection, hold them accountable. But it's always deal with the objection, go back to holding them accountable. Then at the end, you tie in the benefit. Once you've got them really thinking, stumped, they've conceded, no more excuses. Do you know what the number one benefit is for you to be vegan? You no longer have to be an animal abuser. And you can live in alignment with the morals that you say you have because you said that this was wrong. Right? So, do you know what the number one benefit is for you personally to be vegan as an individual?
I'm not sure though, but I've read a lot about it, like less fat, less, all these things. And
yes, there are health impacts. But actually the number one benefit for you as an individual is that when you are vegan, you no longer have to be a hypocrite. Because you say this is wrong, because it is wrong, it's evil. But if you're not vegan, you're pro-animal abuse.
Do you guys know what the best benefit of going vegan is? No. The best benefit is that you guys no longer have to be hypocrites. Because if you guys are against animal abuse while paying for this, then you guys are abusing animals. So the best benefit is that then you can just walk away from this and no longer have to be the reason that these animals suffer, and you can be against animal cruelty with your actions.
And at the end, the way that we should be closing, and this is a very, very important part of the interaction, it's very, very important that you close the interaction by asking, so what do you think you're going to do about this? Are you going to stop abusing animals from today and become vegan or not? What do you think about what I've said? What do you think you'll do about this?
I think we're going vegan.
Okay.
Like now.
We're going vegan now.
It's more important to just ask the question, what do you think you'll do about this? As opposed to what I just said after that in the workshop, which is to say, do you think you'll stop abusing animals? You say that after you ask the question. Let them answer the question, what do you think you'll do about this? And then after that, if their answer isn't strong enough, or if it's, in other words, it's not really, they haven't really answered the question, then you can say, do you think you'll stop abusing animals from today? But usually they say something like, I'll try to do better. And you should never let them get off the hook if they say try, because you would never try in any other injustice. You would never say, I'll try to stop abusing children. I'll try to stop beating my wife. You either do it or you don't.
What do you think you're going to do about it in your day-to-day life?
Not contribute to farming that promotes this kind of disrespect and violence towards others. living organisms.
Absolutely. What do you think you're going to do about this? You're going to go vegan?
You know what? I am.
Yeah?
I am.
So like, I'm learning. And just there I said, you're going to go vegan? I should have just let him answer the question. But it's also not the worst thing in the world to say, because you're letting them know where the standards lie, where the needle sits.
You guys think you're going to do it? Are you going to stop abusing animals?
I'm gonna stop a lot of this shit.
You're going to stop? You're going to go vegan?
Yes, sir.
You're going vegan right now?
Yeah.
Today's the day.
Fuck yeah.
So you think you'll go vegan? Very good to hear.
Good to hear.
You have to. Also, I don't want you guys to get the impression that this is how the interaction needs to end. It doesn't need to end with them saying, yes, I'm going vegan. In fact, most of the time they won't even say that to you if they're really serious. It happens, but don't think that that's what you need to hear from them in order to think that it's a successful interaction, because that's a myth that that's how it works. You don't need a positive and affirmative response from them. This isn't a sales interaction. This isn't business. You're not closing a business deal. You know, you're not life coaching. You're not trying to get people perked up to feel fantastic about their lives. That's just not how it works, okay? This is injustice. You need to get under people's skin. People need to feel bothered by what they're involved in.
Close it off with that question, because you let them know what the imperative is from that point on. That you're not just going to say, have a nice day, thanks for listening, without asking that accountability question, right? Then once they answer, you can say, have a nice day. Cool? That's the whole interaction, guys. It's not that complex, is it? What I'm going to be teaching you in this workshop is All right, yeah, I'll open up the Q&A now. I'll answer your question, which is about plants first. Yeah? Plants have feelings. What do you say to that? Plants don't have a central nervous system. They don't have a brain. So there is no scientific evidence of them suffering like animals do. However, even if you were to convince us, vegans, that plants have feelings too, well, we consume the least amount of plants because we eat plants directly instead of feeding tons of plants to animals who we then chop up and eat on a plate with plants. Pretty simple. Now, how do
And I see, again, like I want you guys to understand the journey that I'm going through here. I'm going to criticize myself more than anyone, because that's what I do. I criticize myself more than anyone. And when I start doing a slew of review videos where we actually review outreach interactions, which will come up, we'll do a whole slew of those soon. I'm going to show you the progression of my outreach. And just there, I just said that I said we chop up and eat on a plate with plants. We don't do that shit anymore. We're animal rights activists. We're animal rights advocates. We're vegan. So we don't participate anymore. So it's inaccurate to say we, and there's nothing humble about saying we. It's just inaccurate, and it's pandering, and it's focusing on being liked as a priority. When you say you, it's much more powerful because it lets people know the clear distinction between this side of the injustice and the other side of the injustice. You currently eat body parts on a plate with plants. So what do you mean plants have feelings? You know what I mean? It's very important that we're accurate with the words we use. I just want to let you know that that is a software update that has been made, where if we're responding, we say you, and we say, you know, we say you when we're referring to non-vegans, and we say us or me when we're referring to vegans.
How do you justify abusing animals?
I also like what Joey's about to say right now, much better than that argument that I just used, which is good. But what Joey's about to say is an accountability point.
How would I compare you to a carrot, a statue?
That's a good one. See, when you say that, you put them in the hot seat. How would you like it?
I think that's the most disgusting excuse people use.
Right.
I run over your child on purpose and I'm going to say plants have feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
It deserves to be dismissed and in disgust as well. I think that's a horrible thing to say.
If plants really did have feelings, why don't firefighters run back into the house, not to get the dog and the cat only, but to get the fucking plants as well? Ever since Gary retired, everyone's been going on this love-based approach tirade and telling everybody that's the only way to get people to be convinced with veganism. This is love-based.
Yeah.
This is truly love-based.
If someone was to rape and kill your sister, what love-based approach are you going to use to explain that to someone, you know, like, and they're defending the rapist and the killer of your sister or something, or a family member, what type of love-based approach are you going to use for them? Are you just going to say, this is fucking horrible, you dare justify the action this man took on my sister? Like, why should I be trying to convince you that this is horrible and wrong, you know, like, yeah, it's just insane.
If they were in
really take a moment to absorb that energy that Joey just shared, because that's exactly what we need to bring to the table. Why the fuck do we need to even explain why this is wrong to people? You know, this is the kind of energy you need to bring into your outreach. Yes, we need to outreach to pull people out of their conditioning, their programming, their evil, sick programming, but have this energy about you that you're not going to just run around in circles and have your time wasted, be disrespected, and all of that. You know, this is a fucking simple discussion.
their position themselves.
Yeah.
Would you want a love-based approach to get you out of that oppression you're in? Or would you want someone to speak directly about what's going on and make sure you take it seriously? Once you put yourself in the victim's position, it puts everything into perspective a lot easier, doesn't it? And this is the selfishness and the actual speciesism of vegans. We think that it's more important to focus on being liked and all the other things that I've already discussed than to actually speak directly about what's going on. And in fact, it's a mockery of our own values because we're vegan because we did take that seriously. And that's the only reason why we are vegan.
What about religion? If people are like, yeah, God.
What specifically are you stumped by?
I just think like if someone is religious and they are not vegan, that they're like the biggest hypocrites ever. Because if they say like they're so much about compassion and like love and giving and like spreading love, and then they're like stabbing animals to death, just because, like I don't get
so that's
that.
What you need to say. You just answered your question.
Yeah, but how do you get these people to realize what
You just said it there and then. Isn't God supposed to be about love and compassion, non-violence?
And they answer like, yeah, but love. God created this world and made stronger made human beings being stronger. And
so doesn't that mean we have a responsibility to protect those weaker than us? Why do we construe that as we need to violate others with our power? Simple question to put things in perspective. And another thing I'll say is, if they're so fervently in their belief about God, would there ever be a slaughterhouse in heaven, which is God's most perfect place?
But then they say like, yeah, but animals don't have a soul. We have a soul.
Animals don't have a soul. Okay, I would ask them to go to a slaughterhouse then. Have you ever been in a slaughterhouse, looked at these beings who are apparently soulless in the eyes? Until you do that, and then come back to me and speak to me. In no religious text does it say you must eat the flesh of animals in order to go to heaven or to be a good Christian, good Muslim, good whatever. Yes?
I just have these questions because I recently had this conversation with a guy, and then he comes up with like, yeah, but Jesus ate fish, and like, you know, all these fishermen, and like he turned, I don't remember everything, but like...
In the Bible?
Yeah, in the Bible, and if you read the Bible and...
I would say, and this is the thing, we're not religious experts, guys. So this is where I would say, sure, I've heard different things from the Bible that I could quote that actually justifies veganism, but then we would just be going back and forth about verses that we're picking and choosing, and I'd rather not do that. Really, what I would just get back to is the fact that they're abusing animals needlessly. If there's no necessity for them to abuse animals in their name, how can they justify that? If they're just only thinking their religious context, you know, you don't want to be a religious expert in response to that. You're not supposed to be. You're not expected to be.
I just think that's a big issue because they believe in something. So if they read the Bible and it says that Jesus ate fish, they're like, hey, Jesus did this.
Again, I could point out where it says in the Bible, and I've seen verses that say that veganism is actually the correct path.
Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Before Jesus, wasn't it? So.
Right. Garden of Eden and heaven are God's two most perfect places. Would there be a slaughterhouse in either one of those places?
Jesus would work at the slaughterhouse maybe in their eyes.
Right.
I laugh because this is such a good point. I mean, it's such a good point. You know, and this applies to any religion. You could say, would your prophet or would your God work in a slaughterhouse? Would they actually kill the animals themselves If not, that's not the work of God. This is the, I'll make a point here about this as well.
And you're at the screens too. You say, look, this gas chamber. Is that Jesus working behind those scenes of this gas chamber there?
Why would God create beings who bleed, suffer, scream in agony, fight out of the kill line, obviously don't want to be killed and turned into sandwiches? Why wouldn't he just create animals that are neutral in their response, like carrots? Why would he create beings that have the capacity to suffer just like you and I do and call them food? If that's the work of God, what does the devil do?
OG. That's the OG quote from Gary.
This is objection handling that should only last a momentary amount of time, and then you should get back to holding the person accountable. Any more on the religion tip that you're stuck on? Does that help you?
Yeah, 100%.
So you know all the responses now to that stupid argument, okay? They're all stupid, but you get it now.
Slavery was also in the Bible too. You know, they used to use the Bible to
Picking and
justify
choosing.
slavery, didn't they? Like,
They're just picking and choosing.
yeah, picking and choosing. Yes.
You touched on this before, but I was hoping you could just clarify. How do you measure effective outreach, that you've been effective?
An effective outreach interaction is one where you've said everything that you should have said on behalf of the animals to hold the person accountable. Whether they respond with, yes, I'll go vegan or not, is not the point. It's just, do they understand the point that you've said to them? Do they get the moral imperative? Do they get that they are accountable? They're the ones that are abusing the animals? Do they understand the solution is to be vegan?
Did I satisfy your question?
Yeah, I guess.
Or
Yeah, because I was thinking, I guess it's just I'm getting my head around it's about giving a really clear message.
Yeah.
And that's the point
Yes.
of it,
Yeah.
not just to convince people.
Not to just get them on anything you can, because we compromise and we say, well, we couldn't get them on the animal rights thing. They're not budging on that, seemingly. So did you know that it's really bad for the environment as well? Oh yeah, I have heard about that. And now they're nodding, now they're responding, right? You're like, oh, I got them on that. So I'll talk more about that. Yeah, it's actually really bad. And in our minds, we're thinking, well, they're going to lessen their harm to animals, so I might as well talk about that. But what you're actually doing is setting up a trap. You're making it harder for someone to take animal rights seriously.
Yeah, because that's what I've been doing, to be honest.
Same.
Yeah. So it's just about the clear animal rights message.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Again, you would...
Someone saying, yeah, it's not that easy. I'm not trying to make this sound easy. I'm trying to help you to have the hard conversation, but I'm telling you how to do it. I'm telling you that this is bittersweet. I'm telling you that this is in fact hard. Why? Because people have been conditioned their whole life to think that animal abuse is okay. And they don't even think of themselves as animal abusers. It's literally psychopathy. You're trying to take people out of psychopathy. I'm not claiming it's easy. I'm claiming that it's hard. I'm telling you it's hard. But what other people are doing in this movement is telling you that it's easy. Yeah, just follow these steps and then you'll get people to reach an affirmative response. And then, yeah, and then they'll say yes, and it will be really positive and cheery and lovely. And they'll think great of you. And that's how you do activism. So, you know, that's the opposite of what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that this is difficult. You are probably going to get a response from people that's negative, but this is the most effective chance you have at getting people out of that and becoming vegan.
Never advocate, and this is just to put into perspective how asinine it is to conflate animal rights with health and environment. Can you imagine this in any other context, with any other injustice? Can you imagine someone promoting the idea that black people shouldn't be oppressed, promoting black rights to you, but then saying, did you know, and this is what they try to get you on because you're not budging, that it's bad for your mental health to be a racist? And did you know that slave ships exhaust resources? How much of a mockery would black rights be to you in your mind? You wouldn't want to also advocate for black rights because you would just sound like an idiot, talking about environment facts and health facts.
Paul, do you think that would be helpful to say that to someone who goes, oh, I care more about the environment? You say, well, how would you know, if there was these exploitation concentration camps happening that were bad for the environment, would you think that that was an injustice for me to speak about the environment in the face of those victims? Because that's what I was doing yesterday. I found like I got, oh wow, yeah, that makes sense. That is pretty bad, eh? I was like, what person would you think I was if I cared more about the environment than the environmental footprint of, say, slave ships and leaving, you know, pollution in the water or something like that?
I think when I think about the agriculture industry, I don't necessarily think about this side of it. I'm also thinking about the environmental impact it has.
This has got nothing to do with the environment and everything to do with the animals' rights being taken away from them and their bodies being exploited.
Okay.
That's what veganism is. It's to do with animal rights.
Okay. All right. I always look at it from an environmentalist perspective.
Why? You don't care about them?
Well, I do care about them being abused, but
what if I was to say to you, you know, the slave ships that took all the people from one country to another to be enslaved? What if I said that those slave ships would cause some environmental impact? What would that be like? What would you think of me?
Oh, terrible.
You think I was a terrible person?
I think when you talk about humans...
You'd think I was a terrible person if I thought that concentration camps caused an environmental impact, that's why we should shut them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, should I think you're a terrible person?
I hope you're paying attention to this because this is profound as fuck. And then wait for the moment where he puts him in the hot seat and he says, well, how would you feel if you were in the slaughterhouse? And then we said, well, we'll shut this down because of the environment though. Yeah, the penny drops the most at that point.
But we're talking about the environment when animals have been raped and killed?
I don't think it takes a terrible person to fuel it. I think the times are changing, that you are seeing a shift in the agricultural industry.
Why is it changing? People are waking up to this shit, eh?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is half of it. And the other half is what I've been speaking about, the environmental side of everything, yeah.
Well, for these animals, this is the brunt of it.
Yes.
I'm an animal person. I'm speaking from the animal's position.
Yep.
And if you're in that position, I'd be fucking fighting for you too, bro.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And what if someone said, well, let's say you're suffering in this slaughterhouse, put yourself in their position, it's a hypothetical, and someone were to say, oh, we should stop this because the environment, though. You're there like, what?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to tell you the most environmentally friendly thing I can do right now is go out and cull humans because we are destroying the environment more than anyone else on Earth, okay? But we wouldn't do that because it's a rights violation, okay?
Ethical concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The environment is it's not a non-issue. It's got nothing to do with the issue of animal rights.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And veganism.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an issue that we must all take seriously. Yeah. But when we talk about veganism, we're talking about this.
Okay, all right. Oh, that's something I didn't know.
Yeah, the slave trade is the biggest contributor to climate change. So end the slave trade now because climate change is climate crisis.
It's horrible.
It's an embarrassing way to advocate. It's a fucking embarrassment. If I was in the animal's position, I would think this is the lamest fucking movement in the world.
The cows don't care about the methane, they care that children have been taken and killed and they're being raped and murdered.
That's all they care about.
Yeah.
And do you think that an animal who's being enslaved, tortured, killed, would think that Joey is too direct or I'm too direct or we're too aggressive? I've been susceptible. Even the best of us in this fucking movement have been susceptible to this. So we understand what it's like to fall into this. I was in the Netherlands and I was doing outreach and I remember this vividly. I was talking to a vegetarian and her friend was vegan, right? Two girls, vegetarian and a vegan. I'm talking to them, I'm already vegan. Yeah, I'm vegetarian. Yeah, no need to advocate to me because I already get it. I'm on the same page basically as my vegan friend, right? So I said, no, you're actually our target market. We're definitely promoting veganism to vegetarians as well because vegetarianism hurts animals just the same as, a meat eater would. She was so offended. What did I just say? Didn't I just say something that was basic and truthful? Yeah, not aggressive, not hateful, I'm not malicious at all. So offended though. How dare you? And her vegan friend takes her arm by arm and walks off. Don't worry about those vegans. Creating a divide between those vegans and I'm the good vegan. And in the moment I thought, oh, maybe I was a bit too savage there, a bit too savage. And I started doubting myself for real. Maybe I'm missing something here. And then I realized I'm speaking for the animals. If I was in their position, I would want to be spoken for in this exact way. So when you stop listening to the critics, which are usually vegans, and you start listening to the voice of the animals, it makes things a lot clearer. And in that moment, I realized, nope, I didn't do anything wrong whatsoever. I said exactly what I was supposed to say.
Because what was something to say is they're going to be criticised sometimes by other vegans for, you know, saying things that need to be said.
You will be criticised by other vegans.
They don't understand. They don't understand.
They're just projecting their own insecurities, and it's got no basis in what's effective and what isn't effective. Your hand went up first, so I'm going to respect that.
I was going to add to that, like I know you've already mentioned this, but I think it's also important to be genuine to yourself. Like if you're not, to be genuine to yourself, like your own personality. You can still be like direct, but you don't have to be a complete savage if it's not in your nature. Because, you know what I mean? Like
there is obviously going to be a unique way we all approach this. Don't get lost in the sauce, because we're all basically saying the same thing.
You can still say animal abuse in a girl's tone with your own tone or your personality, or you might be a softer spoken man, or, you know, obviously I'm a little bit forward. You can still say this is animal abuse.
Exactly.
You don't have to say they're fucking animal abuse and start throwing beetroot juice on people and calling it like, you know, that's not what he's saying. He's saying you be honest and direct about what you're saying. You know, you can say that however you like. How often do you see someone that's on an outreach and then someone's like, oh, start losing it at the outreach?
It's rare.
Yeah.
It's rarer than you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you guys really need to remember, like, this is super rare that people get all worked up and then, you know, get aggressive at you and start, like, literally start flipping on you. That's rare, but it could happen. You have to be open to the fact that it might happen. But, you know, the chances of them, like, physically assaulting you is so incredibly low. And you've got a whole team of people there. You've got organizers who will be there for your safety. And yeah, you guys need to fully internalize that. I mean, I know a lot of you do suspect that talking to people, and I've already covered this, like talking to people in this way is going to result in people flipping on you. It rarely happens like that because people respect the truth. It's familiar to them. What they usually do is just walk off, feeling ashamed of themselves, whilst trying to be on the surface, trying to be cool about it.
Yes?
I just wanted to say that I was one of those people.
Which people?
The people that you guys were targeting. And I was at work and I was busy and I was walking through, you know, the shopping mall.
How long ago?
Just over a year.
Okay.
And I wasn't vegetarian. I mean, I had been in the past, but and I'm English, so I've got that smart voice, so I thought I could argue back, you know. And this lady stopped me, and I was probably the last person that she wanted to stop because I was, you know, rushing and I didn't want to be stopped.
Right.
And she probably thinks that she had no effect on me, and I probably walked away going,
whatever.
Sorry?
You went off thinking whatever.
I mean, I took the thing and, you know, watched, and I was very, obviously, because I'm here, and I haven't touched meat or dairy or anything since. She probably went away and thought she didn't make a difference, and she did to me and to my family.
Yeah.
There you go. And I wrote to them to tell them, but I don't know whether they ever, you know. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, just because you guys are doing something and you might not think that that person has been affected by what you're doing, or they may come across like, you know, like I probably did, like I'm busy, I don't, you know.
And I would argue that you're the type of person that you will not go, I'm no longer a vegan and here's why, make a stupid YouTube video about it. You'll never go back because you understand animal rights and the moral imperative. Again, the reason why I'm doing this workshop, the reason why you're here listening to me and I appreciate it, is because the vegan movement currently is filled with an ideology where it is too extreme to just simply advocate for animal rights. So we need to change this shit.
Some people you have shock factor I think as well, like the lady who I spoke to.
This is a really good point. I was just saying about how people lose it. And Sumaya on YouTube just said, in my experience, the only people that lose it are your friends and family. That's so true. And this is why you need to be stronger on friends and family, if anything, or treat them no different to strangers who you talk to on the streets, because this is their stubbornness and their entitlement is stronger. And that's why they flip, because they think that you should be different with them because they're family. Really good point, Sumaya. I'm sorry about the music there that played.
I think she called me a killer or something in a really nice voice though. I was quite sort of, I didn't know how to take it, but you know, I never thought of it like that. Killing yourself, something like that, and I was just like, yeah. But I was really offended, and I got really like, you know, not aggressive, but because she was putting a mirror up, I guess.
Yeah.
What about when people ask the question, what about the farmers? You're going to ruin their industry, and there's millions of dollars involved, and it's their bread and butter pretty much.
Yeah.
How do you answer that question?
We're glad. We want their industries destroyed. Do they have to be out of a job? Not necessarily. If they would look at this with the right perspective, we're just trying to change the product line. Having a financial gain or financial interest in an injustice doesn't exemplify you from the injustice. Yes?
You're not in the re-employment business for farmers and finding jobs for them, or you're just in the animal rights business?
That's a really good point.
Well,
Can you repeat that?
We don't care what the animal abusers do to stop abusing animals. Like, we're not in the re-employment business for farmers. We're here to tell you that abusing animals is wrong.
This ties into what we're saying.
It's called pandering, what you're doing there.
Yeah.
And I don't care what they do as long as they leave the animals alone.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll work it out. We all got a job. We all worked out how to get
What happened when the slave trade ended in America?
Exactly.
Didn't they just get new jobs?
They had a fucking war.
Yeah, what happened to the Nazi regime? Did they, oh, no more jobs. We can't do this anymore, it's wrong. The only reason they would convert is not for financial reasons. The only reason they would convert is if you hold them to account to the evils they commit.
So what is AV's stance on when vegans come up to the cube? Should we outreach them to become...
Yes, good question. I'm glad you brought this up, my man. If a vegan stops, yeah, this is good what you guys are doing. Have you ever heard of what we do? The idea from that point on is to hold them to account for why they're not taking action. Because we can have 1 billion vegans on the planet. If they're not taking action, we're not going to see a vegan world. If we had 1 million vegans on the planet that were all taking action, we would have a vegan world. Because we're all taking action effectively. So vegans, what are you doing about this issue? You know that this is wrong, you have made the change, what are you doing to speak up about this? If they just say, oh, I'm nothing, really living by example, well, how about you get involved with AV? What we do is we either stand in the cube or we do outreach, we speak to people who stop, give them a bit of a pitch about what we do, give them a card, tell them to look us up on the internet or to join their local chapter, and just say, if this isn't something that you find to be your style, just do something for the animals, please. Instill in them the accountability point, just like you would with a non-vegan, to do more than what they're currently doing, because everyone around you is still doing it and you don't say anything out of your own selfishness because you want to remain comfortable in your social situations. You're also guilty again. I think we'll wrap it up there.
All right. So we have reviewed the workshop together. I've added some commentary along the way to further expand on it. And now I'm going to open up the Q&A. So we have 20 questions sitting in the Q&A so far. If you have any other questions, put them in the Q&A section on Zoom. I've been enjoying your commentary so far. And yeah, and I want to now dig into the questions. But again, if you have any questions, come over to Zoom. So for Instagram, once again, the link is in our bio, so you can come and join me. It's all happening on Zoom. You don't need to download the app, although it's preferable. And Facebook, the link is in the caption, that's the comment rather, that's pinned. All right, let's get into it. So the first question is, how am I? I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay, all things considering, trying to stay healthy and trying to plan for the future trying to see what is the best. I'm using this opportunity to start a podcast soon and a whole bunch of streams I want to do after this. And yeah, that's where my focus is right now. Suggestions for the most effective social media activism. Generally just have vegans interacting with content and want to get the message further, obviously. Video content is the best form of social media activism. So whatever you want to say in a post, just turn on the camera. It doesn't matter how you look. Stop focusing on that so much. Don't get so caught up on that because most people on the internet don't even look that good. And yeah, just say what you need to say. And the good thing with recording videos is you can, do many takes if you like, and you can edit it how you like, but try to keep it as natural as possible. And you will find that the message will go a lot further. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, there's 4 platforms. So don't just record it for YouTube, also record it, edit it into a video that you can put onto IGTV. IGTV does better on Instagram than the short videos do. And also a huge, huge thing that you can do is get onto TikTok because so many people are on TikTok. It's really easy to explode on TikTok. I put up a video, it's 13 seconds long, just calling people out for the coronavirus and saying that this is because of you if you're not vegan. And because you share the same mentality, your attitude towards non-human animals is exactly the reason why we're dealing with this. 7,000 plus views in under a week. So I want you to understand how effective it is to use these platforms. That was just me grabbing my phone like this, like recording a Vine. You remember Vine? Or a short story for Instagram. That's all it really was on TikTok. And you can record videos like that for TikTok. And if you just keep it consistent, which, I mean, I need to take my own advice on this. If you keep it consistent and you pump out videos, you will absolutely crush it on all of those platforms. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. TikTok is number 1. Well, YouTube and TikTok. And Instagram is the big one after that. And then Facebook. Facebook doesn't seem to do as well, but it's still a very powerful platform. All right, next question. How do you respond to people who claim that it's the government's duty to do something against the horrible conditions in which those animals live, and there should be more control and more visits to check on those farmers and so on? So what they're doing there is they're appealing to welfarism, and they're not really putting themselves in the animal's position. They're basically not giving a fuck when they say that. They're just trying to sound like they give a fuck. It's called virtue signaling when they say that. And they're also trying to find comfort in their contribution, in their non-veganism, by saying that, oh, they agree that it's animal cruelty, but the onus is on the industries, they should be better. So the first part about the government, you can say, well, yeah, we don't oppose you taking this up with the government, but what are you going to do about this until that happens, until you successfully do affect we're trying, we've got political parties trying to fight for animal rights, but until that happens, and obviously that means abolishing these industries because we don't want bigger cages, but until that happens, what are you going to do about this as an individual? They're trying to palm it off to someone else, and I covered this in the workshop, but you need to make it about them, and that's obviously what they want it to be about, because at the end of the day, they don't want to face the fact that they're animal abusers. So it's, again, this is the hard work that you need to do. Make it about them and how they don't have a way out of this if they really care. Call them out on the fact that they don't really care as well, if what I'm suggesting to you right now doesn't work. Like in the video that I did with the pharmacist versus Paul Bashir, it's on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out, Paul Bashir. He said, I agree that factory farming is an issue. And I said, well, are you going to be vegan until what you're suggesting is implemented? And he said, no. And I said, well, then you're being a hypocrite and you don't really care. Next question. How do you stay calm and centered, particularly fielding horrible comments on social media? I'm new to activism and am committed for life. I want to get better and not letting the rude comments bother me. Thanks. Angela, good question. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm certainly not perfect when it comes to this. I have a tendency to digress, and I need to work on this. And you know, if you guys have any feedback for me on things you think I should be working on, I'll be open to this, because I really want 2020 to be a year of change. I do let comments get to me. I do, because the stupidity of vegans can really be overwhelming sometimes. Vegans are supposed to be on the same team fighting for animal rights. I have strong opinions about other forms of activism, whether they're effective or not. I am very critical, but you'll never see me on someone's post saying, this is shit activism, or making a post about another activist saying, this is so shit, this activism. You'll never see me doing that. So it blows my mind that people do this in the vegan movement. So Angela, what I'm going to recommend you do is that you do your best to see a positive intention in what people are saying. Again, I am not picture perfect when it comes to this. I tell people to eat a shit sandwich quite often, you know, and it's because I want people to understand that they don't have the right to act like this. I see holding vegans accountable as just as important, if not more important, than holding non-vegans accountable, because they are the ones who are promoting animal rights to others. And so I'm explaining why I take a savage approach to dealing with many of these people. But a lot of the times I do digress and I get off track and I start giving them too much time. You know, I did it in the last live stream where a troll came on. I feel like I had, in that response I gave to them, I feel like I had given them enough at one point, and it was actually really good what I said. I liked what I said. But then I kept taking the bait and I kept feeding into what they were doing and saying. So, you know, even in my last stream, it was a mistake to do that. And I failed at doing what you're asking me for advice for. But many times what I do is I try to see the positive intent in what people are saying, and I respond to them accordingly. I don't think you need to be kind to someone. I'm not saying you need to be kind to someone who's being an asshole to you, but to see their positive intention can take you a long way. You can still respond to them and demand respect in the way that you talk to them, but you can give them an answer that is sort of speaking to the best intention that they could possibly have. And I think that will help you a lot with your sanity. I hope that helps, Angela. I need to take this advice as well. What sets activists like you, Joey, and Earthing Ed apart from other activists who aren't as well known? We work harder. That's it. There's no other difference. What does your weekly activism schedule usually look like? Running AV, meetings all week, and there's many teams that me and Asal oversee. And on the weekends, hopefully, doing cubes, running workshops. We were supposed to be on tour, so we were supposed to be looking at, you know, covering the United States, covering Europe, and we were going to do quite a few cities. So that's what it would usually look like, doing workshops and cubes on the weekends, recording lots of outreach, working on running the various teams within AV, and overseeing the overall direction of the organization, which is a full-time job for sure. At the moment during quarantine, it's the same. However, there's no cubing on the weekend. And yeah, that's the only thing that's missing. But in order to make up for that, I'm looking to do more of these. Was it hard for you to find courage to do, one more time, was it hard for you to find courage to do this type of activism when you first started? Not really. I was excited. One thing I'll be honest about though is that I was really surprised by how much easier it was, you know what I mean? Because I was actually working myself up to think that people were going to be violent towards us, you know, just for simply being out there and telling people that what they're engaging in is evil, is immoral. I thought that a lot more people would be like throwing things at us, and I was so surprised by how many people actually stopped, had a conversation, who truly understood what we were saying was right, and walked away considering veganism seriously. I was blown away by that, and that's why I fell in love with this form of activism and why I continue to do it. Is the animal liberation movement also anti-capitalist? No, it isn't. In the same way that the Black Lives Matter movement isn't, or ending child abuse as a justice movement is also not anti-capitalist, in the same way that putting an end to sex trafficking is not anti-capitalist, or putting an end to beating women, that's not anti-capitalist. In the same way that those aren't anti-capitalist, animal rights as a movement or animal liberation is also not anti-capitalist. Let's not conflate anything other than justice for animals into animal rights. Does Gary Yourofsky's speech make people go vegan? Absolutely, it made me go vegan. He's probably responsible for well over 2 million people going vegan, I would say. Conservatively. I would say conservatively. He did so much work on the ground that isn't seen on the internet. Over 2,600 lectures. He's only got like a handful that are recorded and put online. So if you think about it, thousands upon thousands and thousands of people went vegan because of him when he was doing those lectures, and then millions because of what happened when it went online. So yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite vegan meat products is Field Roast. They were recently brought out by a larger company who produce meat. How should people approach these products? These products are still vegan just because the company is not. Because this is the same. How is this any different from going to the grocery store, going to get petrol at the petrol station or service station? When you go to fill up your car, you're obviously doing this at that company sells sausage rolls and pies and ham sandwiches and all the other animal products that you can find. It's no different. In fact, most companies that you buy vegan products from are not vegan. Get used to it until we get to a vegan world. How do you convey this to close friends and family who are not vegan? I want to tell them the truth, but at the same time, they have been there for me and will always be there for me. But when I don't tell them this, I feel like I'm failing as an activist. Man, I feel you. Man, do I feel you. This is right in my feels. All I can tell you is the truth, and that is you need to not enable animal abuse. You're right in that sense that you get, that sensation that you get. It is correct. You are failing as an activist. I've gone through this myself. I know what it's like. And you need to understand that your family are taking comfort in not being vegan with the relationship they have with you. I know that they'll be there for you. And like you said, they'll always be there for you. This is the issue I have with my family. I've only just started to rekindle with them, but I'm already starting to give up because It's just ridiculous. Not every family is the same, so your family might be different. You need to outreach them like you would anyone else, and you need to hold them to account probably even more than you would with someone who is a stranger. And that's the best I can tell you, but I don't have success in this. I'm a street outreacher. I'm a street activist. So my skill comes from talking to people on the streets, not with family. It's not because how I talk to family is not effective, not working. It's because my family are not working. They are the issue. And many people have this issue. Gary Yourofsky has the same story. His dad didn't even go vegan until his life was threatened and it became about health. Yeah, and this is just the way it is, you know. It's a bittersweet reality that your own family won't do this most likely, but you need to continue to push. You need to do what I said by virtue of your own sensations that tell you that you're failing. You need to win. The only way to win is to say the correct thing on behalf of the animals. If you were in their position, that's what you would want done in your name. How should I respond to people eat different things and you have to accept it? Some people beat their wives, you have to accept it. Some people rape children, you have to accept it. Some people are going to kill and pillage and I don't know, you can name the various things that people could do. And you need to go through putting them in the hot seat, go through the list of things that other people could do that they have to accept, but put them in the position. So by saying, well, how would you feel if someone said that about you? You know, let's say the person you're speaking to is, no, forget that actually. Just put them in the hot seat. Just simply put them in the position of someone who is going to suffer at the hands of someone else simply saying this and using this excuse. How would you feel if someone was to violate you, violently abuse you, and then the excuse they used was, not everybody cares about abuse in the same way, you have to accept it. Irene, again, Instagram and Facebook. If you want to join me, come and join me on Zoom. The link is in the bio on Instagram. Go to our profile. The link is in the pinned comment on Facebook. YouTube, I just posted the link. I'll post it again. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to say to me and you want me to respond, please join me on Zoom. Irene with the next question. Yes, I've always found it sus how people straight away say that they only eat a little bit of meat. It always happens. It happens to me a lot, especially at work. As soon as someone hears I'm vegan, it's the first thing they say to me. Now, do you think it's a good idea to call them out, be honest, and tell them I don't believe them? I've never said it, but really want to. My usual response is, that's great, and the animals are now just a little bit dead. I love that. Do you think that it'd be effective in any way if we told them we don't believe what they're saying? And if you do think it's good, to tell them, how would you put it? Well, okay, let me think about this real quick. Okay, let me think. I think your response was perfect. I would say something like that myself. One thing I said in the workshop is you're only a little bit of an animal abuser then. I like to use comedy in this situation and say, oh, I'm only a little bit of an animal, I'm only a little bit of a child abuser. I only beat my wife a little bit. And they usually get the point from saying that. And it's good to compare it to any other injustice because it highlights how inconsistent and hypocritical they are. And I want to encourage you, Irene, to say something because it is a sign that they feel guilty and they're trying to make themselves seem like a good person to you, like they're appeasing. And it's good to use that as currency to, you know, to say something that is going to expose their hypocrisy and their failed attempt to justify themselves in the face of someone who is vegan, who represents the true abolishment of animal abuse. Like you truly represent abolishing animal abuse in society. So further capitalize. That's my advice. Just going live again on Instagram. You're only a little bit of an animal abuser. It's such a great way of putting it. Oh God, you can't post it twice. Is that how it works? Hey, Camilla. All right. Phil, if you're asking any questions, anyone, anywhere, if you're asking any questions that you want me to deal with, Facebook, Instagram, find the link to Zoom, join me. This is where it's all happening on Zoom, and I'll answer your question in the Q&A section. Let me know if that helps, Irene, what I said or not. If you have any other questions, then please let me know. Rhino, thanks so much for this great education, Paul. You're welcome. This might be very far-fetched, but I just realized that in all 5 Jurassic Park movies, not a single dinosaur is killed by the good guys. It's always the bad guys who kill the dinosaurs, usually hunters or other immoral villains. Do you think this is because viewers care about the dinosaurs just as they care about dogs or Babe the pig? Also, why isn't there a movie hero that works in a slaughterhouse? It basically confirms that in their hearts, all people care about animals. Yeah, this is true, Rania. That's an interesting perspective that you shared with us. You know, this is what I was saying in my workshop. I was saying that people already care about animal abuse. We just think they don't from what they say to us. They say they don't care in order to shut the conversation down. But this is proof, and we live in a society that does actually care. I mean, look at the fact that the industry itself, animal agriculture, hides what happens in slaughterhouses from the public. Why do they do that? Because people have compassion and they do care. People say they don't care, but they fucking do. That's why they say, I only eat a little bit of meat around vegans. And they only say that around vegans. And your perspective is correct. I mean, it's true. Like, not many people are going to admit willingly, unless they're a psychopath, that they are an animal abuser. Even hunters won't admit this. And this is why I'm saying you just need to hold people accountable. Don't focus on education and information. You just need to hold people accountable. They need to feel responsible for what they're doing. And it's a good thing to know that since they already do care about animal abuse, then you have grounds to work on in holding them account. All right, next question. How would you deal with someone who says he or she is already vegan, then starts arguing with you and even raising their voice and telling you ridiculous things such as, shouldn't be showing footage like that to people as it won't turn people vegan, etc. I know what they say is pathetic because showing people the truth is the most effective way at opening people's eyes. But sadly, at my last Cube of Truth, I wasted a lot of time on a person who kept arguing with me and trying to shame us. It seems like the new vegans are more like a cancer to the real vegan movement. They even go as far as saying that it's wrong to even say the word vegan. That's heavy. Well, don't spend too much time on people saying that this isn't effective. Ask them, do they have proof? Because we're out here convincing people, and we've definitely convinced people. If you have an open heart and an open mind, if you actually have a heart and you care, then it's actually really easy to get people to be vegan. I mean, we're talking about ending animal abuse. So I would just say that to that individual and limit your time with them. Don't spend too much time with people who are unreachable. And if you're talking about someone who's vegan, yeah, even more so, go even harder on them and say, well, you know, do you have proof? Hey, why are you here arguing with us? Why don't you just do what you do and stay in your lane, and we won't bother you. We'll just say, good shit from a distance. We'll support you morally from a distance. Just cut it short with them. And your last point is very true. Hi, Paul. Is it okay to ask people to think about someone they love being subjected to the same abuse as the animals are abused, but in a graphic way? Absolutely it is. But it's more effective to put them in the hot seat, the person you're speaking to. Because at the end of the day, they need to feel what it's like to be those animals. And the only way that you can do that is if you put them in the position of the animals and say, well, how would you feel if you had a knife sliding into your throat for no better reason than palate pleasure, because somebody wanted to eat a sandwich that they didn't even need to eat? And be as graphic. By the way, your last point about being graphic, be as graphic as you possibly can be. And no amount of words will actually describe what's going on to the animals as well as them seeing it in real life. So that's why we do need to be extremely graphic in the way that we explain this to people, because that's the best chance we have. Saying something like, imagine your wife baby being taken away the minute they are born. Your wife's baby, yeah. Yeah, you could say that in the dairy industry. If they have a kid with them right there and then, that's also a really good thing to say. How would you feel if your baby was taken away from you? You know, yeah, that's great. Because in that case, when you're talking about their children or their wife, like, you're still making it about them in a way, but it's still more powerful to make it about them directly. I found an AV Facebook for my area and they haven't approved me, so I'm not sure if they're active. They may not be. Email us about that, please. I don't want to sign up to organize anything myself, especially if someone already exists in my area, and I also don't want to have that responsibility. Well, that last part is the more important part. If you don't want to have that responsibility, then there's no point of even discussing whether there is an active chapter there or not that you may or may not want to organize for. Do you have direct communication with the people that run the groups in each area? Yes, we do. So email us. If they're not active, email us about that and we'll get back to you. When you outreach someone in private and they understood the message but are still not vegan, should we continue to outreach and push them whenever possible, or could that be seen as too forceful? The only thing that's too forceful is knives being forced into animals' throats. And that's just one aspect of the injustice going on towards animals. They're also having fists forced into their assholes. They're being fisted for dairy products, for milk, for breast milk to be turned into fucking cheese. That's what's forceful. That really, you need to put this in perspective here. You really have an obligation to speak up about what is really too forceful. And it's the fact we enslave animals. How much more forceful can you be than enslavement? And you should absolutely continue with these people, whether it's online or offline. What's up, Paul? I recently reached out to eat with my friends, and for whatever reason, they always watch my plate and try hard to convince me to eat meat. Man, if I still had people in my life like this, yeah. Yeah, this makes me laugh that anyone would ever try to, if anyone ever tried to convince me to eat meat, yeah, they would get shut down very quickly. Why do they think they act this way? Why do you think that they act this way? They behave as if someone told them if they can get me to eat meat, they'll get paid 10K or something. What do you think this is? Like, what's this burning desire that they have inside to not let me be vegan in peace? Yadi, it's very simple. You as a vegan represent the stand against injustice to animals. You represent righteousness, the truth. You represent the truth, which is staring them right in their faces. They are animal abusers. You are not. You are taking a position that is easy to take in this society, and they are not. They can't even do something. How pathetic are they? They can't even do something that's easy to do and is so fucking wrong. It's so fucking wrong to not do. So of course they're going to feel guilty, and this is why they're trying to convince you to eat meat to make themselves feel comfortable. They're just trying to sleep better at night. If they successfully convince you, it's not for 10K, but I get your point. Like, it seems like they're doing it for money. It's for peace of mind. They're trying to find comfort, and you have a responsibility to not give that to them, to flip the script and make them feel even more uncomfortable, because the focus on social comfort should be absolutely secondary to the focus on making animal abuse uncomfortable in society. You should be making that socially uncomfortable. And you do so just by existing, but that isn't enough, obviously. So you also need to speak up and be direct about this and call them out on the fact that they just want you to eat meat to make themselves feel comfortable about the injustice they're engaged in. Svenja, what are your thoughts about vegetables and fruits for which the farmer still has the animals to use their shit for growing the plants? I think it is also animal abuse, but the vegan organic farming products are still not really available to most people. Very simple, isn't it? If it's not available, then it's not practical. And what is veganism? To live a life that avoids all forms of animal abuse as much as practicable or practical, as much as practically possible. It's not practical to only eat veganic plants, is it? It's not practical for that to apply to everybody. Telling everybody that they need to do that is impossible to achieve, number one. And it's impractical, number two. So therefore not practical, not possible, therefore not vegan. Not necessary to be vegan. Do we need to have a conversation that's separate to animal rights about farming? Yes. Do I prefer veganic farming over and above organic or conventional? Yes, of course. Do I have the option? No, I don't, not really. Maybe like one farmer I know who grows like a few vegetables. that I have to go to the farmer's market to see. And that's like very rare that I even, like it's once a month actually that I see this farmer. And they literally only have a few vegetables. Like it's, how many people actually know a veganic farmer? You know what I mean? There's a lot of, there's a lot of misinformation about organic and conventional farming as well. They do use those kinds of products like manure, but to which degree they do, we don't know, you know, because it's different for each farm. So it's not like a clear-cut direct thing that you are supporting these products of animal agriculture, to which degree you are, because you don't know. I mean, these farmers are also going to be doing things, other things perhaps, that you don't want to support. And there's just no way around this, because what are we going to eat? We need something to eat. So the practical message for everybody is to eat plants. And if you have the option of veganic, of course, but it's not practical to say that that's what you need to do. Did I see Nick Ocato's recent video about going vegan again? No. And that guy is a fucking crackpot. I wouldn't trust that he's actually vegan now. I've seen him talking shit and talking shit about animal rights and whatnot. And he said that he, from memory, he went back to eating torture products because of his health, and then he started doing every single. All right, Connor's getting blocked. I just noticed this moron. He said that like he felt like shit eating plant-based, and then he started eating animal products again, torture products, right? Animal products is not a fitting enough word. Animal products, it sort of still implies that they're products. It's torture products. And then he was doing mukbangs where all he was eating is junk food, like Hungry Jack's, or what you would know as Burger King. And we call it Hungry Jack's here in Australia. McDonald's, and he would go to all these places and then like eat their new burger or whatever, and he would eat so much shit, pizzas and burgers and all this shit, and no wonder he felt like shit and put all this weight on again. But I don't care. I don't care about this discussion about his health, actually. I don't believe that he is actually vegan for animal rights. He's not in it for animal rights. I would bet on. I'd like to be sorely mistaken, but yeah, I wouldn't put money on it. Do you think taking advantage of the current pandemic to advocate animal exploitation is wrong? It is also like advocating environmental impacts and health implications to promote veganism. No, that's not the case, because what we're talking about is we're saying that if you violate animals' rights, don't be surprised that there's going to be a fucking pandemic. So when we talk about the current pandemic and we advocate for animal rights, the way it should be done is to point out the fact that this is just karma. This is what happens when you don't take animal rights seriously. And the same thing, I would say the same thing when it comes to environment and health. Don't be surprised if you get heart disease and cancer, and if the climate continues to become more of a crisis, when you're not taking animal rights seriously. That's the way it needs to be communicated. These are symptoms of the underlying root cause. The environment crisis, health crisis, and the fact that we have this current pandemic. These are symptoms of an underlying root cause. And what is that root cause? Animal abuse, animal enslavement, animal torture, animal murder. we don't want to take that shit seriously. We want to say we're vegan for health, vegan for the environment. Well, if you miss the point of taking animal rights seriously, you missed the fucking point. And that's the way we need to advocate. What are my methods to encourage vegans to become activists? Doing things like this. Running AV. We put AV together to encourage activists to become, vegans to become activists. Creating a platform for people. Can wearing black be enforced? Time after time, I see people just turning up and not wearing black. Well, of course, it's part of our protocol. I have even told some people who join us to please wear black, and they say yes, but then they keep turning up in either bright colored or dark blue clothing. Those who really want to join AV should take us seriously. They should follow the rules and the dress codes. If it's cold and they want to wear a hat, right, so I see what you're saying here, Jeanette, but this is something that you should send to your regional organizer if you're having issues with this. And yes, it's protocol, so people should show up wearing black. Would it be a good idea to recommend to the public to also keep watching vegan undercover investigations or documentaries of slaughterhouses and factory farms to remind themselves why they should be vegan? As Gary Yourofsky said, if it's not good enough for your eyes, why is it good enough for your stomach? Absolutely. You should recommend that they watch Dominion. It's very important. Again, for guys commenting, for people commenting either on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, help me out over here, please. Work with me. Come over to Zoom. This is where it's all happening. You can see the link. I know you can. Let me pin this comment I made earlier. Or didn't I make this comment earlier? And for those who are asking, this live stream will be on my YouTube. If you go to Paul Bashir, you'll see the full stream on there. But if you have any questions or anything you want me to address right now, come over to Zoom. You don't even, it's free. You don't need to download the app, although it's preferable. And you can just come in and go to the Q&A section and put your question there and I'll answer it. Jeanette, yeah, absolutely. You need to just, I would absolutely recommend Dominion or what else is out there that's good right now, but Dominion's what's up. I would recommend that. Absolutely, you should tell people to expose themselves to the truth. That's the only documentary I would recommend other than Gary's speech. How do you respond to people who think that veganism is propaganda? Show them slaughterhouse footage. Is this propaganda? How would you like to go with me to a slaughterhouse? Do you have the guts to come to a slaughterhouse and see if it's really propaganda, if animals are really being abused or not in slaughterhouses? And if they're willing to concede that they are being abused, then you can just simply say, oh, okay, so you're admitting that you're an animal abuser then, if you're not vegan. Where's the propaganda? You're either vegan or you're an animal abuser. And that's all that vegans are saying. How do you feel about zoos, aquariums, and Carol Baskins of the world? I don't know who Carol Baskins, and I haven't seen Tiger King yet. People are talking about it though. So many people, but I haven't seen it yet. Do you think she killed her husband? I don't know. I'm not educated on that subject. Regarding social media activism, I initially didn't care to show my face because I wanted people to listen to what I am saying, unless it is physical in real life outreach. I don't really care about anything superficial. Obviously, body language and how you deliver the message is powerful. Would you say that vocal activism without viewing my physical demeanor makes this more effective? I would say show your face, Amanda, be in front of the camera, say what you need to say directly to people, let them see your eyes, let them see your facial expressions and your body language. I hate feeling like a narcissist filming myself. That's something you need to get over. You're not a narcissist, you're an activist. I know it's not the intention for the message since it is not about me, which is why I'm wondering if there's a significant difference on social media. Anything for the animals I'll do. What is your opinion? Either or. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it does or doesn't. When, how, and why did you decide to change your life? Did you have vegan friends, family, or did you watch YouTube videos? Especially, I would like to know how you got there and where you are today. Because I am vegan only since 4 months and nobody around me is. So I don't have anybody really to talk to, but most of my friends tell me that I should not force my opinion on them and I don't want to lose them. But I want to make an impact too and end animal abuse. Yeah, well, if you keep listening to your friends, they'll perfectly condition you to not even become vegan anymore. They'll condition you to make them feel extremely comfortable while this extreme injustice continues in their names. If you truly want to end animal abuse, and that's what I'm hoping you're here for, and that's what I'm hoping to encourage you to continue doing, then you need to say something to your friends. And if you lose them, they're not really friends, and that's the truth. And you already know this. And deep down, I know that you know this. People who are really there for you and respect you, they are not going to delete you out of their lives for you just simply for you telling them the truth. How did I go vegan? I watched a speech by Gary Yourofsky and I kept doing research on animal rights activism. And I was inspired by people around me who were in Australia doing it as well, like Joey. Joey was my main influence. Who was like local, because we both sort of started doing activism at the same time. And yeah, but Gary, who was the person who inspired both of us. So that's the main inspiration I got. If you haven't seen his speech, I recommend the Excuses speech, 2014. What do you say to someone after having a conversation with them that they do not care? Is that a failure on your part? Nope. That's not how this works. You don't need a positive and affirmative response from them at the end of the discussion for it to be successful. You need to simply focus on telling people what needs to be said on behalf of the animals. Focus on that and only that. And make sure that they understand the facts that you're putting to them. You know, the fact that they are abusing animals if they're not vegan, the fact that they are a hypocrite because they say they're against animal abuse. And what this all means is that they're a human supremacist for the way that they view animals and coexisting life forms on this planet. And this same mentality, this supremacist mentality, was shared by whites when they enslaved blacks. It's shared by men who see women as lesser than. It's shared by anyone who oppresses others. Anyone who's a bigot is a supremacist. And if they say that they don't care, it's because, and I did address this earlier, it's because they're trying to end the discussion. They're just trying to move on with their day and not feel bad about themselves. How do you stay so humble? I do my best. I'm not perfect though. And I just focus on the animals. I try to be as best as I can for them. I try to imagine myself in the worst oppression that's ever existed, the largest and longest standing injustice on the planet, And that's pretty humbling, you know, just to imagine what it would be like to be one of those victims. And then from that point, I just speak up for them and I try to do my best in whatever I'm doing for them from that perspective. But I'm certainly not perfect. And I mean, I appreciate the fact that you think I'm so humble, but I feel I have more work to do. Do you have AV chapters in different parts of the world? How can we start a local AV chapter? You sound new here. Yes, we absolutely do. We've got chapters all over the world. And to find out where, I'm going to type the answer for you. You need to go to our website, cubeoftruth.com. Go to the location section and find the nearest location to you. If there is no chapter in your area, you can apply to become an organizer, and you can do that through our website. Again, if you have any questions, Instagram, please come over to Zoom. That's where it's all happening. And Facebook, same deal. If you have any questions, YouTube, come over to Zoom. This is where I'm answering any of your questions that you have. How would you respond to people that say they love animals, but they love the taste of their flesh more? I love children, but I love beating them in the face even more. I get pleasure out of kneeing them directly in the forehead multiple times a day. But I love children though. I think it's just important that we keep it simple. How would you feel if someone loved the taste of your flesh and then said that they love you though? That sounds like a pretty insane and psychotic kind of love to me. And they'll probably just laugh in agreement with you. Yeah, it's a good point. Because the truth is to be respected. What I'm saying is not actually going to get people to flip on you. When do you think we will reach a vegan Western society? I don't know, but I know that we need to get our shit together and work harder, really fucking hard. I hope it happens in my lifetime, but I am only attached to what I can do today. And I have a short plan, you know, a plan that spans out a few years, perhaps 5 years, perhaps, but I'm just focusing on being as effective as I can be as an activist. And I need all of you watching and listening to do the same thing, because a vegan world will not come about. These people in this movement who think that it's already happening, you need to get your head out of your fucking asses right now. It's not happening. It's not just because we have more vegan products on the shelf than ever before doesn't mean we're going in the direction of having a vegan world. We still need to fight. We need to fight harder than we've ever fought. And that's the truth. People, greetings from London. Thank you for everything you do. Watching your outreach and coaching videos along with other activists like Joey and Ed, I learned the terminology and language you all use is really effective. The most recent being animal abuser instead of animal exploitation. Yeah, because exploitation doesn't hit people, does it? Doesn't carry the moral weight that we intend. It really holds people accountable and it's very direct. I'm now doing this and I can see the shift in people's responses. Powerful. That's great feedback and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that this is working out for you. Not really a question, but I appreciate it. What would you say to a person who uses their children as the reason why they don't go vegan? I was once told that I used to be vegetarian, but then when I had kids, I stopped because they need to be given all the nutrients and formulas, etc. We are not knowledgeable in the subject of infant nutrition. Should we still encourage them to go vegan while they feed animal products to their children? You should be you should be holding them to account for the fact that children can be vegan, and that is no excuse. That is just an excuse. the amount of science out there that shows the World Health Organization, the most prestigious health organization on the planet, has deemed that children can be on a plant-based diet through all stages of life. This is adequate, and this is exactly the thing that you need to tell people. You know, it's pretty simple. Everybody knows that fruits and vegetables are healthy for them. And you can just tell them that the science is there and that it's no excuse. But more importantly, how do they justify subjecting animals to torture and murder if they don't need to? I like to ask people, are you actually open to the fact that your children can very adequately live on a plant-based diet? In fact, perhaps even live healthier than they are now. Because if you're not open to that, I guess we can end the discussion now. Because there's still a rights violation here. And these animals, and I would go back to ask them, so let me just get this clear. Are you against animal abuse? Because if you are, and if you're open to looking into the fact, looking into the science on this, because it's so, you can find this online, it's very easy to find that it's adequate for any human being at any stage of life. In fact, healthier on a whole foods diet. Then there is no excuse for you to continue being non-vegan. And that's how I would respond. Question, I have been sharing a lot of PETA and other videos about animal abuse, and some of my friends give me the feedback that they didn't want to see those videos. Lots of people blocked me. Should I proceed with sharing this content? Yes, but I think it's more effective to make videos, to make your own videos, to sit in front of the camera and make videos. But I absolutely encourage you to continue to share those slaughterhouse videos and videos of animal abuse. But what I found is that it's more effective to actually make videos of you talking and then showing some of these videos in your video, perhaps, as a reference. Yeah, that's my advice. Thank you for your comment there, Ian. Ian says that this is working really well for him. Okay, let's see. This is a long question. Okay, let me read this. I found this statement from someone. I found it quite difficult to reply on this one because I'm not a health professional. I went head on with 8 meat eaters by myself standing up for the animals. She said, quote, laughing my ass off, veganism isn't a suitable lifestyle for everyone, and you saying if you love animals, go vegan is ableist as fuck and gross. Ableist. I am severely iron deficient, and yes, I take supplements, but I also need the high iron count from red meats to survive. Complete utter bullshit. She's fucking lying. Iron transfusions aren't an option, and plant-based foods have very little iron in them. I would die if I don't have red meats. I honor animals over humans, but I am priority. My health is priority. Human beings are such sick and twisted beings, such psychotic individuals. So what I recommend you do here, I would pick apart what they've said. So here's my analysis of this quote. First of all, she's lying about the fact that she needs to get iron from red meat, and iron from red meat is like the worst place that you can get iron because it's so inflammatory, and there's so many other things that are involved in eating flesh that are horrible for you. And the fact that she's saying that it's ableist and ableist as fuck is a manipulation tactic. She's just trying to make you feel bad for advocating for the animals. And I do have a criticism for the words you use there, but I'll get to that in a moment. She takes supplements, but she's obviously not taking the right kind of supplements, because it's very easy to get your iron from supplementation. Iron transfusions aren't an option. Well, why? But this is like, you know, you don't need to ask that question, but like, it's obvious that like she's lying here. I mean, she may not be able to get transfusions for some reason, but supplementation should be plentiful, and there's plenty of iron in plant-based foods. In fact, it's more bioavailable. It's really hard for me to not use my nutrition information, to not pander to this, because this person is lying, and appeasing to their lies is a problem. We shouldn't be doing that. This person sounds like they're not reachable. They're not going to listen. So I would just point out their last line, where they say, I honor animals over humans, but it's my priority to take care of my health. That is obviously a contradiction, because if she honored animals over humans, of which she is one, then her priorities would be on the animals. But it's also, one thing you need to note here is that it's telling that she said that. She's trying to make herself sound like someone who's against abusing animals. She's trying to virtue signal by saying that she honors the lives of animals over humans. So you can see here, and especially with the way this is typed, that this is guilt. She's actually reeking of guilt. And I would say, as a matter of criticism with the way that you approach this, you said love animals. If you love animals, go vegan. I mean, this could be perhaps because they said they love animals. But if you're just outright saying that, like just coming out of nowhere and saying that, it'd be more effective to say that if you don't consider yourself an animal abuser, or if you think that animal abuse is wrong and you don't want it done in your name, then go vegan, because that's the only way that you can avoid it. So I would just sort of explain it a bit more, and don't make this about love, because you don't need to love animals to be vegan. And what I was going to say is this person sounds unreachable. So with these kinds of people, it's important for you to focus on just calling them out, saying something that holds them accountable. Like, you don't even sound like you're open to having a real discussion about whether you can get enough iron from a plant-based diet and supplementation. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. And I'm like, oh, yes, I am. No, I don't think that you are, actually, because the way that you're talking to me is so defensive and ridiculous. If you wanted to have a real discussion with me about this, we could. But I'm just going to leave you with this to think about. If you are not vegan, you are an animal abuser. And you're a hypocrite because you say that you honor animals over humans. So if and when you're actually open to having a real, respectful conversation about whether you can get enough iron from a plant-based diet or not, and I'll just point you to the most prestigious health professionals in the world, then we can have that discussion. But until that point, you are going to be needlessly abusing animals, and walk the fuck off. Or if this is on social media, just move on, you know what I mean? There's nothing more that you can do. Thanks for that heads up, Matt. I did correct that in the end. I feel like I want to do activism or anything along that line that helps the cause for a living. It feels like what I do in my spare time is just not enough. Do you have any advice? Yes. Activists like myself and others who have a job in animal rights, those who work for AV, those who have a full-time activist career, the reason why they do have this for themselves is because we worked hard for it and we dedicated ourselves to this goal of being full-time activists. So Martina, I want you to envision yourself being a full-time activist. And I don't want you to scramble and just do anything that comes up, like working for Greenpeace, or like something that's mildly, like it seems like, you know, something that's for the betterment, like something out of the ordinary. I want you to focus on being in the animal rights movement and speaking up for them in exactly the way that you want to do it. And then I want you to dedicate every day of your life, as many hours in that day, to advocating and being effective as an activist. You know, with AV, for example, we do open positions sometimes, and we do take applications from people who are serious and have something to offer us. If you think that there's some kind of need within AV that could be fulfilled with your skills and expertise, send us an email. We don't have any openings right now, but we could possibly in future. And if you want to do what other activists are doing who are full-time, I would recommend social media. Making video content on social media is a huge, huge thing. And in doing that, you will, if you do this consistently, you will generate support when you start your own Patreon, and you shouldn't feel ashamed to ask for donations for support, because how else are you going to do this? Without donations and support for AV, we wouldn't be able to continue either. So yeah, have some way of people supporting you and continue moving forward every single day. And I promise you, Martina, that you will reach a point sooner than you expect, but give yourself a long goal of like 2 or 3 years that you're going to dedicate yourself to this. I gave myself a goal of 2 years, and then AV took off in 7 months. It was already at the point where it needed to be for me to be able to do this full time, and I didn't have to focus on the financial end of things anymore, because we were selling merchandise and we were doing what we needed to do to support ourselves. And it will happen, I think it will happen sooner for you than you plan, but commit yourself to nothing less than 2 years of doing this solid, as much as you can every day. And there's no other advice that I can give you but to work your ass off. Thank you for continuing these Q&As. I came in this session late and apologize if this has already been addressed. Okay, let's see. This is not an outreach issue, more of a personal one. I work at a store that sells meat, dairy, eggs, etc. It has been weighing heavily on me, as I always want to talk with people about their choices. But as it's my place of employment, I don't think that it's right for me to talk about it when they're at our store. Any advice or suggestions? Yeah, that is tricky. You probably get fired if you're holding everybody accountable when they're coming through the aisle to the, I'm imagining you serving them at the checkout, and they're coming through and they put flesh, secretions and body parts on the conveyor, and then you saying something to them about how immoral it is. It will probably fare badly for you, because they'll complain to management and you probably will get fired. If you're willing to lose your job, that's what I'm going to recommend to you, because I'm an animal rights activist and I speak for the animals. But if you don't want to lose your job, then don't do that. You know, my advice is to plan, like I was just saying for Martina, to move into a space where you are actually working in a job that is vegan, or is, you know, close to that as possible, or being a full-time activist, because we need more full-time activists. All right, moving on. Couple of questions. Do we keep people in our Facebook groups if they are not coming to Cubes of Truth? Nick, this is a question for your regional organizer. Please ask that to your RO. Chelsea, really appreciated, Paul. I've also struggled on this statement because I'm not a health professional and they are mentioning anorexia. Yeah, hope that helps. Let me know if it doesn't. Oh, okay, well, Jeanette, ask your organizer to speak to the regional organizer about this. Just suggest to them that they just kindly say that you wish that this protocol was stuck to more, and that if it's not being stuck to, suggest to enforce it more, or to speak to or for them to speak to the regional organizer about getting help with this. But it's important that you say this respectfully to your organizer. Do you think killing animals will increase karma in the world? Decrease, you mean? It would decrease good karma, increase bad karma. Yeah, absolutely. Karma is just another word for laws of nature being violated, very basic laws. Do you think vegans online are toxic? Absolutely, probably the most toxic. Definitely the most toxic of any human that is in the animal rights movement. I would much rather deal with moronic non-vegans and their bacon comments. Hey Paul, I went to my friend's live and I saw her trapping a goat in the neck on a wooden stand in her kitchen, I believe. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just left her live. Bad, I know. How would you have responded in that situation? I would have, you already know what I would have done, right? I would have been all in the comments. I would have requested to also go live if this is on Instagram, to join the live, if they would have accepted. But I would have been in the comments, just calling them out for the animal abuse and expressing how disgusting it is that they're doing this to innocent beings. Have you ever heard of John Rose on YouTube? He has amazing videos on veganism. If you haven't checked him out before, take the time when you have. Yeah, I know who John Rose is. And if it's the same person that I'm thinking of, I recommend for people listening to this to not go and see him on YouTube, because, let me confirm before I say what I'm going to say, actually. Yeah, this guy. He's not vegan, is he? He's raw vegan and not necessarily vegan from what I understand. He's not in it for animal rights. He's doing this health trip, which is fine, but don't call yourself vegan if that's the case. This guy's said some crazy shit in the past. He is a Holocaust denier, and he's even said some really racist things about the Jews, not just denying the Holocaust, but he's also said some other things that were really deplorable. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about him. I do not recommend necessarily for people to go watch him, because it's not an animal rights channel. Any tips on getting through to my family? This seems to be the most common. And Sumaya, I believe that I've already responded to this for you. Family is more difficult than others, but I'm going to tell you to do the same thing as you do with strangers, and perhaps even to be even stronger with family and hold them to account at a higher level than you would with strangers. You need to do that, and the rest falls upon them. Whether they take action or not is on them, and there's nothing you can do to force it to happen any quicker. All you can do is focus on it. All you can do is focus on telling them the truth, and being as direct as possible. See, I know that everyone right now is stuck with their families during quarantine. I get that you guys need help with this, but I'm a street activist, so let's just keep that in mind. You know, I speak to people on the streets, and I haven't got success with speaking to my own family because they're morons. And I think family are just more moronic because they think they're more entitled. They think that they don't have to do something given the fact that they're closer to you for some reason. Is it normal that those in AV are against vegans? I joined AV in my country and the leader was very rude to me, constantly sarcastic about me being a vegetarian. I consume butter and cheese, no eggs, and I was willing to transition in my own time. I attended 2 demonstrations and truly felt motivated. However, he kept attacking to the point I felt very low confidence, cried so hard and left the group. Angie, please don't have a frail spirit when it comes to this. I don't know what that person has said, and if it's truly sarcastic and if it's truly bad behavior of the organizer, then please send us the information, screenshots and things that you can prove to our HR team, which is hr@anonymousforthevoiceless.org. But when I say please don't have a frail spirit about this, I'm going to assume that what was being said to you was in the best interest of animal rights. And if you do consume any torture products, any body parts, then it is not justified. And you don't need, you said that you're willing to transition in your own time. I understand that it will happen on your own time, but just know that while you're transitioning, which should only take 3 seconds, because when you identify that abusing animals needlessly is wrong, what more do you need to work from? Oh, but I have my addictions and I have my habits. Okay, but if we were talking about child abuse here, racism or any other form of violence that you're involved in, why is there a delay? Why should there be a delay? How is it justified for there to be a delay? Just know that animals are being tortured to death, all for you, during that time that you take to become vegan. And we don't allow for volunteers to come to our events unless they are vegan, because it makes no sense to advocate for the rights of animals while you're consuming animal body parts and doing the very thing that we're working to change. You represent the very problem that we are trying to provide a solution for, to end. So when you look at it from the animal's perspective, Angie, hopefully you can understand why these things were being said to you, but I'm working off the assumption that what was being said to you was with the best of intentions from the animal's perspective. But again, if they are behaving in a way that you see to be beyond that, and beyond that meaning they're bullying you in some way, then please send us screenshots to HR and we'll look at it. And you started your question with saying, is it normal that those in AV are against vegans? But then you went on to say that you're not actually vegan. So I'm not quite sure what you meant by that. Oh, you corrected yourself in the next question here. Sorry, you mean against vegetarians. Yeah, we are strongly against vegetarianism because it's a bullshit bootleg version of defending animals. Vegetarianism has created this idea that you don't need to be vegan right now, that you can be this other version and you can still feel like you're defending animals. So it's a huge problem, vegetarianism. I say it all the time that it's a cancer to animal rights. If you truly want animals to receive the justice that they deserve, then you have to be vegan. Nothing less is justifiable. One more question. I asked a friend to watch What the Health. I followed up with her days later and she said she watched it. I then asked her if she watched the whole thing. No response. About a week has passed by. How do I follow up? This is why I don't want to talk about health. I don't care about the health discussion. Obviously, they're trying to avoid you. How do you follow up? When you have the opportunity to speak to them again, speak about the animals and only the animals. When do you... Okay, so Instagram, this live stream is going to end shortly. I appreciate you guys joining, but I'm going to start another live stream once this ends in a minute. And if you have any questions for me, come over to Zoom. I appreciate you guys chiming in and saying that you find these effective, these live streams. I'm glad my work is helping you. How do you, when do you find time for yourself to keep your mental health in check? Every day. Every day, I try to find time for myself to keep my mental health in check. I recommend meditation. I need to do a lot more of that. And I smoke weed. I don't necessarily recommend that for everybody. And I eat well, which contributes massively to mental health. Because what you eat is what you are. You are what you eat, and your brain chemistry is produced by the materials you consume. That's what, I mean, what I mean to say is that you will give your brain a better chance to produce healthy chemicals when you eat healthy. All right, we're live again on Instagram. Yeah, and I also recommend not consuming animal rights content all day, every day, because that makes no sense. You will burn out. I like consuming music, art. I like getting out and being in nature. Obviously right now is a bit difficult, going to the beach, being out, you know, in the woods or something like that. Music is a big thing for me. Netflix, comedy is a huge thing for me. Oh, I just saw the Dave Chappelle special about like how he got awarded with the Mark Twain Prize. That was so epic. I just saw that last night on Netflix. And I also watched the Netflix movie on Quincy Jones. That both of these made me cry. Both of those moved me so much because I'm a huge fan of Dave Chappelle and Quincy Jones as well. And it was really interesting to learn about Quincy Jones's story. And I thought that the Mark Twain Prize given to Dave Chappelle was very well deserved. And I thought that the way that they covered everything in that was awesome. And I knew about his whole story. I was watching it thinking, damn, I actually know all of this. Like everything that they mentioned in that, I pretty much knew already. Yeah, it was cool. Very, very cool. I highly recommend that. But these are the kinds of things that I do. Nikki, I've been vegan 9 years and I've been with my husband for 12. He respects my decision, but doesn't have any interest in going vegan himself. He respects my decision. They say they respect your decision in order to keep you at bay. So you don't talk to them about, and they're saying that in order to earn currency, earn respect for their decision. They're trying to make themselves seem like they're giving you something that they should also be given in return. But where is the respect for their decision? There is none. It's not respectful what they're deciding to do. So they're trying to ask for respect by giving it to you first, but that's not how this works. If they want respect from you, it should be earned. It's hard sometimes because he doesn't understand why I'm so passionate about it. He gets annoyed when I ask him to try certain foods or watch videos, documentaries to learn more about what the animals go through. Do you have any advice for this kind of situation? Nikki, you need to put your foot down and stop fucking around. You need to come home and look him straight in the eye and say, look, I've been with you, just like you're telling me, I've been with you for this long. I know that you don't understand it, but I need you to listen to me so I can help to try and make you understand. This is not a food trend. This is not a fucking phase that I'm going through. This is injustice. Do you consider yourself an animal abuser? Are you comfortable with that label? Because that's what you are if you're not vegan. I'm vegan because I'm against animal abuse. Are you against animal abuse? Because the only way out of that is to be vegan. If you don't believe me that you're abusing animals, well, I mean, it's so fucking obvious, obviously, then why don't you expose yourself to Dominion, the documentary, and watch exactly what you fund and what you support every time you chomp on body parts, whether you pay for it or you eat it or you wear it. I want you to truly face the facts. I don't want to be with somebody who just hides from the truth. And I want this relationship to be based on truth and to be based on to be based on respect. For real, there needs to be justice. There needs to be realness. If you were a racist and I was not, why would you expect me to respect you? So if you abuse animals and I do not, why would you expect me to respect you? I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody. Hold them accountable. Do not let them off the hook. I have a question. Not too long ago, I saw you guys gave a definition of veganism just focusing on animal rights. Why do you focus on just that aspect? Don't you think it is already hard for the people to go vegan to close the definition just to animal rights? I hope to be clear. Adol, you sound like you need to get clear about the definition of veganism because the definition itself is animal rights. And I don't even care anymore. I don't care anymore. Even if someone was to show me that veganism wasn't about animal rights only, I don't care. I don't want to be in this movement if it is not only about animal rights. Because in the same way that gay rights is only about gay people, in the same way that child abuse is only about abusing children, I want this to be about animal rights because they deserve to have one cause dedicated to them. That's my answer to you. Why is this focus on animal rights getting stronger from us? Because they deserve it. And it's long overdue. They deserve to have a whole movement, a much bigger movement than we have currently, focused entirely on them. Because they're the most oppressed beings on the planet. And speaking about health and environment further marginalizes them. If we make that the focus, if we mention it as a symptom of the underlying problem, I'm all for that. But if we talk about it as a reason to be vegan or a benefit of being vegan or some shit like that, and I've done this mistake more than anyone, then we are marginalizing the animals and further taking away a message from them and making it about something else. What is the best way to talk about veganism without slaughterhouse footage? Like when you aren't near a computer, you don't necessarily need slaughterhouse footage. You need to describe it graphically though. You can just start a discussion about animal abuse, about whether we have the right to be a supremacist in regards to other animals on this planet. And you can be and you need to be as descriptive as you can in, graphically explaining what's going on, but you don't need to have slaughterhouse footage. This is just a simple accountability conversation. Are you against animal abuse? Cool. Well, what do you think you can do about it? You know, it's very simple. It's like what we're doing on the streets, but you may have to just explain a little further around what certain things look like for the animals. I already answered that. How do you go about the argument that people won't go vegan because of their culture? Is animal abuse a part of your culture? That's what I would say. Don't you think if your culture is abusive and violent needlessly, that your culture needs to change? That's another one. Many cultures in history were violent and immoral. Do you think that those cultures should have continued? Or do you see validity in those cultures evolving to a moral position? That's the other one. There's 3 responses I gave you. Hi, Paul. With cubes, it was easy to turn conversations toward the vegan goal as they were watching Dominion while we discussed their objections. Now that our advocacy is largely through social media, any tips on how to get kindness to actually watch these videos? Actually, you kind of just answer it. It's the best to make your own videos. I'm finding they claim they've watched it just to say it doesn't bother them, but we know that they're lying. Yes, correct. Any tips on how to get them to actually watch Dominion, etc.? You call vegans pussies. You think veganism is a mockery. I dare you to watch this documentary with an open mind. Don't even say with an open mind. I dare you to watch this documentary and confront the reality that you won't even face, that you won't face because you're a coward. Yeah, that's what you should say. You should bait people with truth, call them out. Yeah, that's what you should say. What will happen with AV's collaboration with Challenge 22? I totally understand that veganism is not a challenge as one of the supervisors of Challenge 22. I just wonder if using Challenge 22 at all is a good idea or not. I will still do my volunteer work for them daily. Just wonder if using it as a tool during outreach is good or not. Look, I'm not going to say it's... We're working on our own way of doing this. I'm not going to say it's bad because Challenge 22 has a success record and I like that they're working towards getting people to go vegan. What I don't like about it is the fact that it gives off this impression that you need to do something for 22 days to be vegan, that veganism takes 22 days, or that it's a challenge. Because when you look at it from the animal's perspective, the only challenge is what they're going through. How fucking easy is it for us to just go into the store and get soy milk? It's fucking easy. All these challenges are perceptions. It's a perspective problem. So I have an issue with that. I have an issue with promoting veganism as anything but easy as fuck, especially when you have the right perspective. Well, I mean, that's the only perspective that people should have, right? Is the victims. Because when you analyze any injustice, you need to analyze it from the victim's point of view, which nobody does. Another classic line from Gary Yourofsky, which nobody does. And that's our job, to make sure that they do. And if you do that, it's so easy to be vegan. So fucking easy. Do people need to ask questions sometimes? Yeah, but I like to empower people with tools that they need, and the only tool they need is Google. Because the only compass you have in this challenge, that the only compass you need is this vegan, is this not vegan? And you can find that out on Google, whether it's a product, an ingredient, a restaurant, a meal, whatever. You can find out on Google very easily. So I don't know if that answers your question, August. I would still continue to work with Challenge 22, and I've got no gripe with them. I just think with our outreach approach, we need to update it to the point where, and we are doing this at the moment, to the point where we just simply leave people with a moral imperative and we tell people how to do their own work to do, you know, to be vegan, and we make it sound as simple as possible, because it really is simple as fuck. Nick, what is the best way or method to make people join? Nick, this is an organizer question, so please send this to your regional organizer. Okay, Chelsea's following up from the previous question. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm glad that my response helped you, Chelsea, but let me know if I haven't satisfied your question. Thank you for giving me more information. You're welcome, Janet. There is a popular psychology professor, Jordan Peterson, who says he eats only boiled beef due to severe allergies to everything. He has millions of subscribers and I would like someone to call him out. Oksana, step up to the plate. Why don't you be that person? We need people calling people out. The more the merrier. We need more people in the animal rights movement calling non-vegans out. I agree that he needs to be called out. I agree. I agree. Everyone needs to be called out if they're not vegan. All right. Next question. Have you thought about doing live hangouts with other activists on Instagram? Yes, I have. I've started doing this recently. I think it's another good way to talk about veganism and animal rights during this time of quarantine. August, send me a message with who you think I should do a live stream with. But I've got some in the pipeline. And yes, I do recommend that. On this topic of self-care, but try not to make it too much of an echo chamber. So if non-vegans join the stream, they should be getting some truth. They should be getting some education. You know what I mean? Money Heist. The Money Heist on Netflix is recommended by August. Haven't seen it. Any advice for being married to a non-vegan? You're not going to like my advice. Who doesn't want to change is certainly not going to like my advice. I know a lot of people talk about not dating someone who isn't vegan, but when you're already married and find veganism later in life, it's a little different to handle. It's a daily struggle when the person you're with doesn't feel how you feel about something so important. You know something, I'm going to tell you something. My previous relationship that I was in was with someone who is not vegan. I don't even think they're vegan. Then I'm going to say they're not vegan still. And at the time, I felt like the biggest fraud. I felt such a weight over me. It was killing me. It was fucking killing me, and we had so many fights over it. And initially, there was a health. Like I became vegan during the relationship. Initially, it was all about health for me, and I was only eating plants, and then every now and then, and it was really only every now and then, I would eat some animal flesh. And because of this, it enabled the activity. It enabled, even if I didn't do that in the earlier stages, it enabled the abuse in that relationship for a long time, even after I became vegan and very serious about it. And I spoke very directly about it. Yeah, she just wasn't getting it. And when I left that relationship, the weight that came off me was breathtaking. I want you to feel that feeling. It was so beautiful. For the first time, I felt like I was living my life, like living my life on purpose. I was able at that point to feel empowered to become an activist. We broke up in late May of 2015. And right there and then I became an activist in early June. I started doing animal rights actions, and I developed this fervent, you know, dedication to something that I wanted to do really badly, and it was the best decision I ever made. It was the best decision to dedicate myself to that, to something that I truly cared about. So my advice is to be very matter of fact and have a very serious conversation with your partner about this. To be so serious about this, because the softer you make this sound, the more they won't take this seriously. You need to have a very serious conversation with them about the fact that they are abusing animals. You've come to learn this, and now it's time for them to learn this, because it's very simple, very fucking simple. If they're not vegan, they're abusing animals. Abusing animals is something you won't stand for. If you're living with this person, you call them your husband, your life partner, your husband, your wife. This is something you reject, and you will not stand by and watch and enable. More important, enabling is the word you need to understand, because you are enabling the animal abuse if you don't speak up unapologetically about this. And if it doesn't go in the direction you hope, my advice is to break up with them, to get divorced, because you wouldn't be with someone who abuses children, who abuses anyone, who is violent towards anyone, who oppresses anyone. You wouldn't do it in any other scenario. Well, how about you do it in this scenario too? Because guess what? The animals are the most oppressed. They deserve you to stand up for them more than any group of beings do. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate you saying that, Matthew. Connor, you want to help us with design? The best place to email us is through our website. If you haven't done that, please do it. If you have done that, please send us another email. If it got lost, I don't know like when you sent this, but we may respond within a week. So if it's the case that you've sent it within a week, just be patient and we'll get back to you. Feeding your dog or cat. I have already addressed this in previous streams, but I will say this. You need to do all of your research. And it's very easy to feed dogs, and it's also easy to feed cats a plant-based diet. With cats, you need to do a little bit more research. But I'm advocating to human beings here. So do your research and be honest about how much research you're doing. And then once you've done that, do more research. And then once you've done that, do more research. And then once you've done that, do more research. Do not give up until you find a way to successfully put those animals that you are taking care of on a plant-based diet. Why? Because you have a moral imperative to do that, to do everything in your power to put them on a plant-based diet. And I was saying this in the previous stream, you're not just supporting waste from the slaughterhouse. This is a legitimate end of that business that you are supporting. If the pet food industry was to no longer support animal agriculture, that would be a massive financial loss for them. So stop thinking that pet food industry, like that, the pet food companies are just driving around to the back of the slaughterhouse and taking scraps out of the trash. That's not how it works. This is a legitimate end of the business that you're supporting. And therefore, thousands of animals are potentially going to be tortured to death for your companion animal. So you absolutely have a moral obligation. And just don't lie about this to me or any other vegan or to yourself, because animals are going to be tortured otherwise in your name. So yeah, I've answered your question. Hey there, Abdel from the Osaka chapter from Japan. Oh, awesome. You said that we should avoid advocating for animals using health arguments. I totally agree. What if the bystander says that we can't be healthy as a vegan, as well as let me answer this question because I know that you're going to get into. My response is, well, I'm vegan and we're not dead. So what are you talking about? And that's all you need to say. You don't need to get into facts and studies. How about you just say, well, I'm vegan and I'm fine and we're all vegan, and how come we're not dead? That's all you need to say. Keep it simple. Okay, now read the rest of your question. What if the bystander says, as well, I would mention the WHO studies, the World Health Organization studies, and position, which is enough for most honest people. Yeah, if they're honest. My actual question is, what if the person knows more about health than me, than the outreacher, and try to do sneaky moves and bring technical details that are hard to comprehend for a non-specialist? What would you do? See, this is, Abdel, this is exactly why I just said you should just say, well, how come I'm not dead then? And we're all vegan, how come we're not dead? There's millions of vegans on the planet. How come we're all living and not dead? How come my blood tests are all fine? How come I healed a lot of diseases through being on a plant-based diet? This is what I would say, because I healed IBS and a bunch of a few other things. So how come, if that's the case, how come I'm not dead? How come I'm healthy? And then, so once they can see, so how do you justify needlessly abusing animals? Thank you for answering my question. This is going to be saved anyway. Yes, this stream is going to be saved on my YouTube. Paul Bashir. I'm vegan and I've noticed that with some people, the environment argument works more than the animal rights one because they personally care more about the environment. Don't you think it's okay to use that argument at those occasions? Only if you describe it as a symptom of not taking animal abuse seriously. If you care about the environment, that's great. But animal abuse is the biggest cause of environmental destruction on this planet. So if you don't take animal rights seriously, it will fuck the environment. And whenever you take shortcuts, and this is the thing, even saying that, I'm going to pull back on, because when you advocate for the environment, it can be responded to, it can be debunked by people simply saying, well, I'm going to live remotely off grid and just fish and only eat the fish that I catch. And environmentally, that's actually better than us going and eating at a fast food restaurant. So this, if they're not willing to budge on the animal rights message, I would go back and watch my workshop about how we need to advocate. I would watch it again just to inspire you to advocate effectively for the abuse of animals. If somebody cares about the environment but doesn't care about animals being abused, I'm promising you that they're lying. Because if they care about the environment, they're obviously not a psychopath then. And if they're not a psychopath, they do care about animals being abused. And if they don't seemingly care, how about you just ask them, well, what if it was you getting stabbed in the neck? How would you care about the abuse being done to you in that case? How would you feel if you were in the slaughterhouses getting mutilated, castrated, and having knives shoved into your throat? Would your perspective change then? Would you care then? So my point is to advocate more directly and more effectively for the animals. And that's the best shot you've got at getting someone to care about being vegan. And if you're going to bring up the environment, only mention it as a symptom, you know, as a symptom of humans not caring about animal rights. Hope that's clear. AV NYC has another Zoom call tomorrow, Sunday. We are going to be practicing this direct outreach approach. I welcome other activists to join. DM August Belen on IG. That's AUGUSTBELEN on Instagram. Good call, August. Chelsea, thank you for your, I'll read that once I end this. Not a question, so I appreciate it though, and I will read this after I end this. When do you think we will reach a vegan society? I answered this earlier. I don't know, but we all need to be fighting and the chances become better. And I'm going to do that, so I hope you all join me. What is your favorite meal? I love fruits. I'm a fruit nut. I love sweet fruit, different kinds of fruits. I'm a little bit of a connoisseur when it comes to fruit. I'm good at hunting good fruit. But my favorite meal is also potatoes. I love potatoes a lot. Potato dishes, they rock my world. You know, there's a beautiful meal that Assam makes. It's called fesenjoon. It's a Persian dish. If anybody knows fesenjoon, and I mean, you know what I know, you know that it's so dope, it's so good. And she makes it with like a plant-based chicken, like a chicken tender. And yeah, and she makes it really well. She makes a really good dish. And if you don't know what fesenjoon is, try to eat it. You probably won't find it vegan, but it's basically walnuts and pomegranate molasses and a little bit of tomato paste, and I don't know the rest, some onions and some other things that go into it, but it's so good. It's fantastic. Lately, that's been my favorite meal. One last question. Thank you for the work you do. I admire your approach. As a forensic psychotherapist, I often use this quote: when dealing with monsters, we must be careful not to become monsters ourselves. My question is, you deal with so many brutal truths and people who are conditioned to hold unforgivable views. You also have to bear witness to the reality of animal abuse on an unthinkable scale. How do you process this in order to stay functional and proactive? In your position, you carry a lot of trauma others don't want to face. How do you manage this trauma and avoid burnout? Alice, what a fantastic question, and I appreciate it a lot. I did speak about this earlier, about having balance and working on myself. I know that I can digress sometimes and get caught up in the madness of it all. And I do have work to do interpersonally. But I do, like, you know, here's one thing I do to take care of my health. Lion's mane. Can you see that? Yeah, this is lion's mane. It's a mushroom. And this is a supplement I take to help with my brain and reishi and things like this. And I eat well. I try to take care of myself. And knowing what the animals are going through you're right, it's a lot to wear, but it's nothing in comparison to what they are going through. It's the least that we could do to acknowledge what they're going through and to speak up for them directly and to be as bold as I'm advocating. I really love your question, Alice. So I don't think that you are becoming a monster when you call people out who are abusing animals, or in any injustice really, when you call the oppressor out and you be direct with them and you hold up a mirror and you know, tell it like it is and you say what needs to be said. So yeah, I'm very committed to that, and I like to just keep an eye on my mental health. If things become too overwhelming, I check out, like I went through the things I like to do earlier, and it's basic health routines, and I like to change up what I'm doing if things do become too overwhelming. And I like to consume art, music, comedy, and I do it for the art form itself. I really enjoy the art form itself, you know. That's what really gets me through all of this and keeps me sane and functional and proactive, like you say. And I love to study animal rights as a student of animal rights. So I go back and I watch older videos of Gary Yourofsky. I watch many videos of my brother Joey Carbstrong, and I study it, and I watch my own shit, and I go back to the very beginning stages of me doing activism, and I learn from it as much as I can. Yeah, that's my answer. Muhammada is amazing. You know what's up. Thank you. I will definitely use that. Just one more question related to health to preach for the devil. What if they answer your personal experience is anecdotal and vegan studies length aren't sufficient to make a long-term statement? What would your answer be? Well, if they're claiming that you can't be healthy on a vegan diet, well, you debunk that by saying, well, what about me? I'm vegan. How come I'm not dead? If they think that's anecdotal, you can flip it on them and say, well, how do I know what you're saying is not anecdotal? Because we can go back and forth with studies. I can give you studies, you can give me studies, but I'm trying to throw all of that out right now, because even though I'm confident that I can meet you 2-to-1 with every study you show me, I'm living proof that you can be vegan. And I would try to just get them on the fact that they can be vegan. Do you agree that you can be vegan and be healthy? Like, get them to concede on that point after saying all of this. And if they won't concede on that, they're being intellectually dishonest, because you're living proof, and millions of vegans are living proof that you can be. Ask them if they're at least open to that. And if they're not, then it's no point of even having the discussion. I would maybe just tie in at the very end there the fact that they are unjustified. They're still unjustified because innocent animals are being tortured to death just for them. And that's what my answer would be. Questions coming in. Is it okay to burn and destroy slaughterhouses to stop animals from being murdered? That wouldn't stop them from being murdered. Maybe not now, but maybe in the future when veganism is more extended and popular. I don't see how that's going to stop slaughterhouses from existing, because if you burn it down, they've got insurance, they'll just rebuild. You'll get put in jail because you won't be able, unless you get away with it. But you'll get put in jail likely, which means you won't be able to advocate anymore. Yeah, they have insurance, so they'll just rebuild the slaughterhouse. Unless you're doing this for media, I don't see how it would be successful. Plus, you might actually kill animals in the process, which would look really bad if there were animals inside. Because sometimes overnight they keep animals in the slaughterhouse who they will then kill in the morning. Yeah, that's my response. Chelsea, do we have any cubes of truth in New Zealand that you can be a part of? Since watching your live videos very recently, it has aligned me more than ever to become a full-time animal rights activist. Fantastic, Chelsea. However, I'm finding it easier to advocate online at the moment because don't know anyone around my town and aren't socially connected with many vegans, but I'm ready to save as much money as I can and dedicate myself to the animals wholeheartedly. This animal holocaust is the biggest injustice on earth and I can't do anything. I can't do nothing and sit by any longer. You are making history with your approach, Paul, and I know it. Well, thank you, Chelsea. I'm glad to hear that. Yes, there is Cubes of Truth happening in New Zealand. Go to our website, cubeoftruth.com, and you can find the chapters in New Zealand. If you go and search through the location section. And I love your ambition to become a full-time activist. That's fantastic. What do I think of Isaac Butterfield? He comes across as lame, nonsense arguments, and his viewers believe him. Also, I love and respect everything you do for the animals. Keep up the great work and to all. Thank you. I think that he is pathetic. I can't actually believe how anyone who watches his channel takes him seriously. He says his arguments and doesn't even sound like he believes in them. He's so unconvincing. He's the most typical, he's like a grown child. He's like a typical idiot. That's all I have to say. And people will follow him because he's consistent and he's loud and consistent in the sense that he makes lots of videos. So you will develop a following when you do that. Where are the vegan men hiding? There's plenty of vegan men. What are you talking about? Where are you? Social media. How about you use social media? What if I've only been vegan for a few months? How can I say I am proof that you can be vegan when they could just say that it's only been a few months and the issues will start to show later on? Well, are you talking about outreach with a stranger? How would they know that you've only been vegan for a few months? You don't have to use yourself as an example here. You can point to others who are vegan for years. I mean, we just had a vegan reach to over the age of 100. I think he died at the age of 102. He was vegan for 52 years. He went vegan at 50. Heart surgeon in California, I believe. And the point is, there are millions of vegans on the planet, so you just have to point to them and use them as an example. How come we're not dead? How come we're thriving? How come we're happy and healthy? In my experience, trying to say, what if you were the one being slaughtered doesn't work because many people feel extremely superior to animals and won't compare themselves to them. Plus, usually they try to change the subject saying that if things are produced in small scale, they don't create any issue to the environment. Here in Italy, it's very difficult and no one seems to open to listen. My friend, this is everywhere in the world, not just in Italy. Everywhere in the world, people don't want to listen. If they're making it about the environment, you need to make it about the animals. It's your job to anchor the conversation back to accountability and about animal rights. And the fact that people feel extremely superior to animals is something you should call them out on. Call them out on being a human supremacist and having the same mentality of any oppressor in any context of any injustice. They have the same mentality as white slave owners. And what if you were the one being slaughtered? I mean, you don't just give up after one attempt. And also maybe you're not, maybe you're not reading the situation enough, like clearly enough. Like if people are saying this, don't think that they don't care. Just see it as them trying to slide out of the hot seat. which is of course what they're going to do. So keep putting them back in the hot seat. You know, you're a human supremacist. You hold the same mentality, like I said, as a slave owner did, a white slave owner. Anyone who oppresses others, you hold the same supremacist mentality. So how would you like it if someone was to stab you to death and then say, well, I'm more superior to them, so that's just how it is, you know? And Sarah, what I'd recommend you do is rewatch the workshop, because we sort of covered that in the workshop and the Q&A, and it will help you to focus more on the accountability section of the interaction more effectively. What do you think on the view that we have a moral duty to try and stop wild animal suffering? This is Humane Hancock's position. How about we just focus on what humans are causing, because that's all we can really control right now. That's my view. I think that it's silly to start thinking about those kinds of things until we address people becoming vegan. Until that happens, we can talk about that. Because humans are the biggest problem on this planet. Humans cause more suffering by far than any other animal on the planet. Once we end that injustice, then we can talk about how to end wild animal suffering. What is your opinion on slaughterhouse vigils? Also, do you think vandalism of such places is effective at all? Because it's kind of holding people accountable, right? I'm not talking about burning the places down, but the little things. Yeah, I'm all for you putting animal rights messages on slaughterhouses and slaughterhouse trucks and things like that. Yeah, I'm all for that. I don't know exactly what to say beyond the fact that it will get taken down probably. Like, they will probably arrest you and you have to be willing to go through that. I don't know if it's the most effective thing for you to do that. I'm just all for anyone doing anything for the animals that is going to, you know, that you're doing with some kind of strategy, and you think you're thinking in terms of how this will go down for the most, you're trying to get the message across. So hopefully your actions result in that. So I'm all for that. Vigils, they're good, but again, they need more strategy. They need to be strategized more effectively. And making agreements with slaughterhouses and slaughterhouse truck drivers is, it's enabling it, I feel like, you know, when we have these nice agreements with them. But it's very powerful to document what these animals are going through and putting this online. So that's what I love about vigils. And I also love how real it makes it for you when you go and connect to what these animals are going through. For you as an activist, that's very important. Hi, Paul. I really love your work and what you do. Thank you, Andrea. You said something before about family and friends and what we have to say to them to continue our action of activism, even in the strongest and deepest way with them. But the question is, if they don't want to listen to you, if they say that they've always ate animal products, if they talk about things like, my grandpa always had his own pigs, and I always ate a very eco and no industry, non-industrial meat. If they laugh at you without being serious with you, what should our attitude be with them? How would we have to act with them? All of my loved ones share this view. Should we be a hypocrite? Should we be hypocrite with them? Thank you for your time and sorry for my English. I think I understand what you're saying, Andrea. Yes, you should call them a hypocrite, and yes, you should treat them like anyone else. I've already covered this so many times now, but you do need to be as direct with them. In fact, more direct than you would with anybody else, because they think They're entitled to not taking this seriously, and they think that they can make a mockery of you, veganism, and the animals. So you need to put your foot down and be more, you need to be stronger with them and be more ruthless in how you hold them to account. I know that you love them and respect them. I have the same problem with my family. But at the end of the day, they are doing something that is incredibly evil, and we cannot turn our cheek. We cannot look away and disregard that, because it is an injustice for us to do that. It is complicit, we're being complicit in the injustice. And we're enabling the animal abuse right in front of us from people whom we care about and who say they care about us. If they truly care, they would not mind they would not mind you being honest, at least not long term. Maybe in the short term, they're gonna be angry with you, but you being honest, direct, truthful, being real with them is the least you can do when you're not supposed to be lying to those who you love. So that's my answer. What is the most effective way to deal with someone that doesn't care and is set in their ways? I've already answered this. Will Asal be joining any future Zoom workshops like these? Miss and love her as well. Not sure, you'd have to ask her. What do you think of being friends with non-vegans after a while, them not becoming vegan and you keeping this relationship? Tell them the truth. You treat them like anybody else who is abusing animals. You be as direct as you need to be, and then you cut them off at a certain point if they continue their behavior. How long of a time frame is up to you, but I'm telling you, the longer that you keep them in your life, after you have told them the truth and nothing but the truth, you are enabling the abuse that they are involved in, period. I know it's not what you want to hear. I know I'm not giving you advice that sounds friendly and beautiful and sweet, but it's the truth. And you know it's the truth. You don't need me to tell you that. You already know in your gut that what I'm telling you is true. We need to stop being soft with friends and family because they find comfort in us. And we can't continue to perpetuate comfort and enable the abuse. And that's it. No more questions. Thank you all so much. How long have we been going? How long is this stream? All right. So thank you for your time, everybody. I appreciate your questions and joining me for this stream. This is the last one I'm doing in this series where we review my latest workshop and I take questions. So thank you for coming along for the ride. If you missed any of these previous ones, or if you missed any of this stream, you can watch all of these on my YouTube channel. Go to Paul Bashir on YouTube, check my channel out, and you can watch a series of these live streams. There's over 24 hours of me taking questions and reviewing that live stream, which only goes for an hour or an hour and a bit because of the Q&A. So I've done over 24 hours of content for you, reviewing this, answering questions, and really, helping you to absorb this approach as much as possible. So head over to my YouTube channel if you want to see all that. Otherwise, in future, you'll see more of these, but they'll be centered around my next workshop that I'm going to put up, which is similar to this, but a little bit more expansive. I'll put that up soon. And then I'm going to do another slew of streams where we review outreach content. And that's the part I'm excited about. I'm really excited about reviewing outreach interactions with you and then taking questions around that. That's going to be exciting. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next stream. Much love, everybody. Stay safe out there.